Well, alrighty then. How you guys all doing today? Just getting the stream fired up, ready to go. I'm gonna play this little tune. This is an instrumental, familiar song to all Canadians, perhaps the Americans too. Here's hoping I don't mess it up, because I actually like this tune when I can get through it without messing it up. Now that I'm saying I'm gonna mess it up, I'm for sure gonna mess it up. But I'm gonna play it anyway. Because I want to. I did it! I did it without screwing anything up. I'm so impressed with myself. I'm so happy. Good to see you, Alex. For those of you who don't really know, the Friday stream is a fuck around stream. Like, it's just a fuck around stream. And I talk about movies and games and shit like that because, honestly, I don't really get a day off anymore. So... How you doing today, Alex? I hope you're doing good out there. Just gonna wait for more people to get into the chat. Fridays are usually pretty low volume day in the first place. For obvious reasons, right? Beautiful picture here of Toronto. Maybe I'll play this tune. I don't really play this tune that often on the stream. Oh, I'm gonna keep it long. I'm gonna keep it low. Sometimes I do this one high. But it's kinda, I don't know if it's more fun, but there's like... Oh, very nice. Got your red hammer and sickle mask in the mail today. There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun. It's been the ruin of many a dear boy, and God, I know I'm one. My mama was a tailor. She sewed my new blue jeans. My papa was a gambling man down in New Orleans. Now the only thing a gambler needs is a suitcase and a gun. And the only time he's satisfied when he's on a drug. The others on the train. I'm heading down to New Orleans to wear that ball and chain. Toronto looks like a water city in this picture. Yes, it does. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna play some of the songs that I've written recently. I'm just welcome to Friday Fuck Around Day, guys. I'm gonna do what I want. We are gonna get into the day's news. I promise. It's mainly memes and shit. Not a very good news day, honestly. No big like bombshell explosive discovery or anything like that. So, as is usually the case, honestly, like I feel like Fridays are usually like a no news kind of nothing day, and then something drops usually on the weekend, almost like it's a plan, right? Almost like it's a plan. Oh yeah, I forgot about this one. Sometimes I just write some poetry and I don't put music to it. I got a couple of those. Here's one. Let me play the one that I'm embarrassed to play. This one's embarrassing. Yeah. This one's embarrassing, and I haven't wanted to play it in front of anybody because it's embarrassing. But I think if I just accept the lighthearted nature of the piece, I think it'll be okay. And I was talking about sex like 2 days ago. Anyway, you guys let me know how this plays, okay? If you're on the other side cringing, please let me know, because I don't want to play this and have people cringe. Okay. With that truly excellent setup that instills all of the confidence that humanity can instill. Here's this piece. It has no title. Okay, here we go. I got a secret to tell to you. Nobody knows, I don't know what to do. I got a feeling deep down in my soul. Don't tell anyone, nobody should know. And I wanna be super slutty. I wanna be super slutty. Stand up straight with those shoulders back. Heart in that heart, get ready for an attack. Softness is for pussies, empathy's a crime. Keep chasing the money, give God none of your time. But I wanna be super slutty. I wanna be, please let me be super slutty. Keep us tired, wear out our bones. Plunge the needle deep, don't leave us alone. Kings give up empires for one night of bliss. Why on God's green earth do we put up with this? 'Cause we wanna be super slutty. I wanna be super slutty. You know what? That felt okay. I did not feel embarrassed singing that. I did not feel embarrassed presenting that. I felt fun. That felt fun. Yeah, that felt fun. Yeah, even if you're over there cringing, I don't care anymore. I don't care. I played it for someone. It felt nice to play. Good. I think it would only make people smile. It would only make people smile. Oh, geez, I don't remember this one. That's the fun part about going back on your old writing. You're like literally like, I don't remember this one at all. Gotta rip out some pages. Gotta rip out some pages. Oh yeah, this one. This one I remember. This one I remember. How does this go? Sold a package of lies, spun their stories and promised the skies. Now they're robbing us in front of our eyes. They get up watching your children crying. The ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Raise the banners, take up the cause. Suicidal nations don't have any laws. Lift up your heads and take out your claws. Watch what happens when your apathy thaws. 'Cause the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Fascists, break all their bones. Take everything away, don't leave them alone. Bury them beneath a mountain of stone. They're evil, we won't forgive or condone. And the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Won't go down without a fight. Something like that at the end. Didn't stick the landing. That's a great song. That's a great song. Another one that I was a little worried about just because of the, like, kill the fascist line. But honestly, I've heard worse things in music. Oh my god, I forgot all of these songs. Oh, I don't even remember that one. Jeez Louise. Karate calls later, John. Bye, Alex. Thanks for popping in, bud. Thanks for popping in. Alright, enough music time, enough music time. I've hit you guys with like 3 tunes that I've never played to anybody. So, I feel a lot better about those songs now. So thank you so much for being an attentive and wonderful audience while I tried those tunes out. How are you all doing? How are you all doing? Yeah, welcome to Friday Fuck Around Day. If you're in the chat, you want to pick a number, here's your chance. We're doing today's number. I never win this thing.
Here we go for
it seems completely
number.
Pointless to me now to even do this.
October
but here
1,
we are with Mr. David Lynch. Picking a number. Here we go. Now that I'm saying these sorts of things, I'm going to absolutely pick the number.
1 through 10.
I'm going with an 8. Feeling an 8.
World of numbers.
We got a 7. We got a 10. Good to see you, Jeff.
Pick a number.
Here we go. Here we go.
Today's number
the attention is
1.
1. You know what, man? 1. You can't do anything with a 1. Usually I'm like, oh, well, 1 times 7. I guess I could be like 1 times 7 or 1 times 10. I guess we're all winners if it's a 1, right? Oh, jeez. Well, farewell to the city skyline here of the city of Toronto. I wanted to start with this because it is good news. It's good news, and I should be reporting on good news just like anything else, right?
Some new modeling data out of Ontario when it comes to the pandemic, and some optimism too when you take a closer look. Data suggests that Ontario's fourth wave has now been flattened for two primary reasons. Number one, continued public health measures like masks, and number two, high vaccination numbers. Data does show cases are increasing in some public health units. Overall, things are starting to even out. Cases are going up in children, but when it comes to hospitals and admissions and ICU capacity, things have been stable for several weeks. There's a wide range of projections, of course, here with the fall and winter upon us coming up in the next couple of months. Public health officials urging increased vaccinations as, of course, the best way to try and make sure this all contains itself. Let's bring in Dr. Kashi.
So this is good news, right? This is good news. The curve, like we were all sort of anticipating a spike up like happened with the second wave right around this time, right? It was going to follow the same thing. But the reality is that we didn't have the vaccine then. And so it looks like it's flattened that curve, right? We all remember from the first instance of this that flattening the curve was the terminology that they were always using. Well, it looks like we've done it. We've flattened the curve. And the flattening of the curve means that it's possible that we go into a decline, that we get a bit even, and maybe even start moving towards reopening, as some countries have done. Hey Tash, how you doing? Oh, thank you for the compliment on the music. Felt the catharsis myself. How wonderful, because that's what it's about. That's what it's about. If I play a song and nobody feels anything, then I'd just rather put the song aside. It's I'm always trying to reach into people and pull something out. Always. Well, and I shouldn't say I'm even trying. It's just part of the goal of the whole thing is to reach in, grab something, and even if I can't pull it out, I can shake it a little, right? Good day to you. So, while this is optimistic and while this is good news for us here in Canada, I worry that it is just going to be a momentary reprieve because of what's going on in the rest of the world, because of the inability of our system to actually generate enough vaccines or even want to generate vaccines for poorer nations. We are still allowing this thing to kind of operate as a petri dish. We are still allowing it to mutate. What we've seen throughout the southern states, the low level of willingness to get vaccinated is also creating this. This is just my own concern, right? Like, this is not official data. I'm not spreading anything around to say, like, and this is definitely what is going to happen. But the concern definitely is that COVID mutates and sidesteps our vaccines, right? And that we get a virulent, contagious, highly deadly, even this report, which is reporting a flattening of the curve and all this kind of stuff, is saying that it's infecting children more, right? And that this virus will come through and it will be extremely deadly and extremely contagious and sidestep our vaccines. That's the nightmare scenario. And we are not really doing much as a people to sidestep that, right? We are not getting ahead of that. One would think that the United States, if it was serious about its concerns with this, it would, A, mandate the vaccine. At this point, I think we have to. It's no longer a personal freedom issue. Sorry. Like, it's no longer a personal freedom issue. I don't buy into this argument anymore. I think that if you were being invaded by a nation that had the intention of destroying you, it is rational for the local military and the local police to start conscripting people. I think that that's normal, right? If you were under fire and you were having to fight, well, fight. And if all you have to do to fight in this particular case is get a needle, then get a needle and shut up about it. Like, just shut up about it. I'm so exhausted with this. And so that would be one. And then two, the second thing they would be doing is they would be giving this vaccine away like mad to poorer nations, right? But they're not doing either of those things. And so the concern and the fear is that we're just going to get another iteration of this that is going to be far more difficult to deal with and far more deadly. But again, that's just a concern, and I don't think it's I think it's fine to air those concerns, but the evidence we have in front of us right now is that we are here in Canada flattening out, hopefully going into a decline, hopefully evening out, and hopefully, for God's sakes, I could really do with this COVID thing being over. What do you guys think? Huh? What do you guys think? You cool with just living life with COVID? Nah, let's get rid of it. Let's do it, man. And when we declare, when any politician of any credibility whatsoever stands up and declares COVID over, people are gonna lose their minds. It's gonna be a fucking party in the streets, dude. I'm actually really looking forward to it. One of the big reasons why I'm staying here in Toronto and not looking to move out of the city is because I'm like, I want to be here. I want to be here for when this shit gets crazy. It's gonna be great. Yeah, if we don't hit it globally, it's just gonna mutate, as you said. All hands on deck. Yeah, it's odd that it's been even a conversation, honestly. Like that's the big thing that I think always needs to be pointed out, especially to like the pro-capitalist crowd, like the pro-capitalist people. It's odd that it was even a conversation, right? And it's so sad because it's nothing new, right? The Jason Alexander of Seinfeld fame put up a tweet. I don't have it on the ready, but he put up a tweet where he said something along the lines of, imagine that the government has said to its citizens, everybody should turn their lights out in the middle of World War II. Everybody turn your lights out so the Germans don't know where to bomb as the planes are flying overhead. But there are people who insist on leaving their lights on because it's their own personal freedom, right? And the point he was trying to make is like, that's absurd, and this is a similar analogy, and so let's have a discussion along those lines. And then, of course, the internet nerds went, well, you know what, Jason Alexander, here's the funny thing. The British government did do that. It did tell its citizens to turn its lights out, and there was a protest movement against it. So even in the middle of a literal, actual war, and not like barbarians at the gate, as the analogy I've been using, but literal bombers flying over London cities, looking for targets to drop bombs on, the government is saying, please turn your lights out, not only for your own personal safety, but for the safety of everyone around you. Turn your lights out to not draw attention of German bombers. And there were English citizens who were saying, no, it's my right. I should be able to turn the light on. What do you mean you're mandating me to turn my light on? If I want my light on, I'm going to have my goddamn light out here. I go out on the back stoop and I have a cigar, and I'm going to have that cigar, and you can't stop me. And I'm going to do what I want to do. So there's something corrupt and corrosive at the heart of Western civilization, right? Western civilization, as I've been told, that we're supposed to protect and defend and all this kind of stuff. There's obviously something rotted. Because, like, literally bombers are dropping bombs on your city. And your elected official, who you have elected in order to fight this war, literal war against actual Nazis, have said, all you gotta do is turn your lights out. And you say blah, 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 about it. Yeah, there's something rotten. There's something deeply rotten at the core of Western civilization. And it's worthy of investigation and discussion. Like, but I find that the people who stand up and are quote unquote defenders of Western civilization, like they don't want to actually admit that, like, what the fuck is that? Like, that's a problem, right? How do you not see that that's a problem? How do you not see that, like, there are situations where the body public needs to work as a unit, needs to follow instruction, and needs to work in tandem with one another for the benefit of the whole? Like, how do you not understand that? And the very fact that that point is not understood is itself the rot that we are talking about. The very fact that there is anyone who is going to stand up and say, well, no, I should be able to act independently of the unit during high periods of crisis and threaten the safety of the entire unit is the problem. And the very fact that there are, like, to me, it's no different than somebody standing up and saying, yeah, we should eradicate black people. And you being like, do you not see how this is a problem? And then being like, what? It's my personal decision. I should be able to eradicate black people. What? Like, I don't see much difference. Like, really? And so there's our rot. There's a deep in the foundations of Western civilization that we have to investigate. And we have to ask some serious questions of ourselves as a people. What the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Like, why are we this selfish? And it's incredibly selfish. Like, it's incredibly selfish. And I no longer care to use the terminology of, like, individualism or anything. Like, this is selfish babyism. Like, this is you are a baby. You didn't grow up past 2. You don't understand how to share. You don't understand how to, like, make even the most meager, modest sacrifice in order to help literally anybody. Not even your own family, right? Like, you're not even helping your own fucking family, let alone yourself, right? And, like, so what is that? Like, what is that? And I think it just goes deeper than, like, greed, right? This kind of, like, off the cuff, like, greed thing. I think that there is a much, much deeper rot that we are only ever going to discover if we get enough people to actually stop participating in the death cult and the destruction that is around us, and actually get to, like, analyze and think, meditate, pray, whatever, like, sit in a corner and don't do much of anything except introspect about it. And I do think it's from this introspection that we are going to get people who are going to come out and be like, oh yeah, this rot that exists at the very foundations of Western civilization that have completely pilloried it. This is what's going on. And I'm not claiming that I've got the answer to that. Like, I'm just saying that the rot is obvious. It's obviously foundational rot. Like, where did it come from? How did it get there? Why can't we move past it? Like, can we move past it? Is this simply a matter of growing up and reforming? Is this, but to me, it seems much deeper than that. So I have no idea where to go from there. So I'm just kind of throwing this into the atmosphere to maybe get somebody else's wheels spinning on it. And some other super genius out there can figure it out and let the dullards like me. Afternoon to you, Darren. Good to see you, Darren. Feel like I haven't seen you in a while. Maybe I have. I'm not sure. Either way, good to see you. Good to see you. This fall and winter is the test. Yeah, I'm ready to be done with it. I've stayed away from my family for so long now. That's hard, man. That's hard. It's hard to stay away from the people you love for their own safety, right? And this is what sucks about this whole conversation, is that there are so many people in the conversation who are making sacrifices, right? Sacrifices are being made in the public, but there's just, like, a large enough group of people who refuse to sacrifice anything at all. And, like, sacrifice is the name of the game, right? Like, that's the Christ narrative, right? Christ sacrifices himself. Those people reject the very impulse to community build, which propelled us to survive this long as a species. Yeah, what's the story? How does a society or a culture get to that point? It's very, very, very. It seems very deep. Good to see you, Victini. I didn't say hi to you. Good to see you, bud. With the brethren. I think that's the funniest thing, dude. Like, a guy named Loaf of Kropotkin comes in, and everybody starts grabbing the bread meme. Oh, I wanted to share this. I have put this in the Discord, so anybody who's interested can grab this. But I'm going to share it in the chat here as well. This is a list of video lectures that you can't find on YouTube that are from Mr. Michael Parente. If you don't know who Michael Parente is, if you don't know his work, he is a man who analyzes empires, essentially. He does a really wonderful lecture on Rome and Julius Caesar as well. And also, I mean, you can see some of the titles, right? The Sword and the Dollar, Sweatshops and Genocide in Central America, Slavery by Any Other Name, You Can't Make a Silk Purse Out of a Sow's Ear, A Look at Structure and How It Affects Democracy, and on and on and on it goes. This guy, he, in my view, isn't as prolific as someone like Noam Chomsky, but definitely has the impact of someone like Noam Chomsky. And the only reason he's not better known is that in his older age, unlike Noam Chomsky, who has managed to sort of sustain his ability to articulate and be part of the conversation, Parente has fallen into poor health. And so, unfortunately, right when we could use a powerful voice like Michael Parente's in the conversation, time makes fools of us all. But fortunately, because of YouTube and the internet and all of this kind of stuff, people are beginning to collect his lectures. And literally, like, this guy's, all his stuff is on, like, VHS tapes. Like, old VHS stuff, right? If you're under the age of 20, you're probably like, what the fuck is VHS even? It's literally like a tape. And so people are beginning to collect his stuff and beginning to get his stuff online. You can find some of his lectures on YouTube, and all of them are worthwhile. Not a single one. And his what I really admire about Parente is his critique of communist nations is fair. That he acknowledges the failures of what the communist nations. He doesn't back down from what those were, but the critiques are accurate and aren't hyperbolic, right? He's not saying things like, 100 million people, right? Like, he's not saying any of that nonsense. He's talking very cleanly and clearly about what the failings of the socialist and communist nations were, while simultaneously also focusing on their successes, for which there were many. Bumbleguppy, how you doing today, bud? Good to see you. So this is this is my long pitch. Please watch some Michael Parente. Michael Parente's a baller. He's absolutely a baller, and I wish that he was in the conversation today. I wish that he was part of the conversation today. But that's what we're here for. We're here to keep the ball up, keep passing the baton, right? Keep passing the baton. That's what it's all about. It's all about resurrecting these ideas and keeping these ideas in the public conversation and in the public discourse so that they don't disappear. Have I bookmarked that? I have, so I can close this safely. So let's just get into some of the memes, man. A new start after 60. I started sketching at 72, and I graduated with a fine arts degree at 96. Archie White was a keen teenage artist, but gave it up for 5 decades as a solicitor. Now he is starting a new student charity and painting furiously. Imagine what this guy could have done, right? Imagine what someone like this. Like, obviously he wants to be a painter, like, or a drawer, or a sketcher, or an illustrator, or any of those words that we use for the same sort of stuff. Like, he obviously wants to do it. It's obviously something that's inside of him. He was doing it when he was a teenager, right? And then he had to put it aside so that he could capitalism. And then after 50 years of capitalism, the capitalist system finally lets him go because we've created a system that says, okay, we got to let him go. And he spends his old age doing what he was doing when he was a teenager, right? So we've wasted 50 years of this man's life. And not only that, we've wasted the potential of 50 years of one of who could have been one of our great artists. We don't know. And this, to me, is the great heartbreak of today's era, is that for all the capitalist promise of like freeing us and letting us explore the world and all this kind of stuff, none of that is happening. Our artists are working in places like Starbucks, right? Like they're taking their creative energy and they're pouring them into these fundamentally worthless capitalist pursuits. So that instead of creating art that could be meaningful, could be a statement, could build a culture, right? Be something that stands the test of time and people look at thousands of years in the future and wonder what was this, what statement was being made, what was going on in the world at this moment, in an effort to learn something about that moment, and then perhaps then learn something about their own moment, and then perhaps learn something about themselves, which is the entire artistic pursuit. Instead of that, I want a frothy little milkshake, you know? We all a little latte and a little coffee in it. Like it's really, 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 really fucking stupid. Like it's really fucking stupid. And at the end of this man's life, I guarantee, like that 50 years of solicitorship, right? He's not going to give a fuck about any of that. Like that 50 years is going to just basically in his brain be distilled into like a little nugget. And that little nugget's going to be called the capitalism nugget. And the stuff that he's going to remember, the stuff he's going to care about, are these paintings that he's doing, for sure. Yeah, the capitalist promise is essentially, sure, I'll respect you in the morning, baby. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And they say that as they're heading out the door. Like it's a shame. I know people, and I myself have fallen for this, right? Like it's like I play music, right? Like all of the music that I have written and that I play for you guys has happened since the pandemic started. And it's 100% because like I've got time now, right? I've got time to be able to focus on this stuff and to be able to do what needs to actually be done in order to pull something out of the ether, right? Like that's how I view my music. Like whenever I talk to people who have a very like self-aggrandizing perspective of artistry, I'm very like, okay, bud, like if you say so, like I feel like your stuff is going to fall away pretty quickly, right? It's going to be like a hit now and then just go away and people will never remember it. That the real artists and the real artistry seems to be the people who understand that they are just like the touchdown point, that there's something else going on, I say above them, but around them, and that when they pick up the guitar and when they focus on it, it's like a lens focusing itself, and then there's like a flow point that happens, and I've talked to writers, who have said like, yeah, I keep a book with me all the time because sometimes something comes on by, and if I don't actually take the book out and like write it down when that is passing by, it's just gone. Like it's just gone. And there's even a story, I forget whose story this was, but there was one writer who said that she was in a panic to find a pen. Her pen died on her as the thing was going by. So she finally found a pen and grabbed the story back and pulled it back and wrote it down backwards because it was coming to her word by word as she was pulling it back from the ether. And like these sorts of stories, like I feel like if you say these sorts of things to capitalists, the best that you'll get is some kind of scoff, right? Some kind of just like disbelieving, like sounds like a mental illness to me, right? And I mean, it is an affliction. Like nobody asks for this. Honestly, like nobody asks for this. And do you know what happens to artists if they don't actually do art? They go a little wonky. Like they go a little wonky. It is best to think about these sorts of things as if it is the universe inflicting it on you. The universe saying like, okay, you're one of these types. Here you go. Whether you like it or not. Like whether you like it or not. And like nothing is more heartbreaking than watching an artist who cannot produce art. It's very, 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 very heartbreaking. because they're anxiety ridden, they're depressed, they're angry, right? And then when they do produce something, they're so pent up and frustrated by it, and they know they'll never make money with it. That's the big thing. They know it's not for sale, right? It's not. They'll never, like, the capitalist system only has so much room, and usually, like, what artists are doing now is making art for packaging, essentially packaging and just billboards. That's it, graphic design or whatever, right? And there is, like, no contemplation or no effort put into just, like, art for art's sake. That very kind of Buddhist perspective of, like, the Buddhists have this wonderful practice. Is it the Buddhists or the Hindus that do this? Maybe both. In any case, they'll make sand art, like a mandala, out of colored sand, right? And it'll take them a long time to do it, right? And they'll make the mandala. It'll be gorgeous. And then they'll sweep it away, right? And there's no permanence to it. That the doing of the art was the purpose of doing the art. And that there's something greater that comes from doing that than simply turning around and exchanging it for money. And like, really think about how kind of nuts it is, right? It's, like, music is a good one. Like, we're literally attaching to a frequency that changes our state of being in the environment. Like, we know that music does this, and with art as well, right? You're manifesting from your fingertips a reality and a piece of imagination, a single still of an entire universe, right? And the best artists are the ones who can capture the sense that the universe expands beyond the snapshot and continues on. That this is just a frame of a larger sort of thing. And I think about movies, right? I think about movies. Like, here we are at, like, the height of cinema, which is a completely new art form. Like, it's only been around for 100 years. It's only been around for a century, right? Look at what we have done. Look at the extravagance that has occurred through painting, through sculpting, through dance, through acting, theater, like all of these different art forms, right? And there are plenty of examples of mastery within those fields. And cinema is still evolving itself within the space of what is possible, right? That CGI and special effects and these sorts of things continue the expansion of what is possible to be created through the medium of film. So not only is the imagination of the artists that are interacting with the medium still expanding and changing, but the medium itself is still expanding and changing. It's very exciting. And what are we taking all of that potential and what are we doing with it? Superhero shit, right? Just superhero schlock mainly, you know? And why? Because a surefire way to make a bunch of money is to take people's childhood nostalgia and jam it in front of their faces so that for, 2 hours every so often they can kind of fleetingly imagine they have that same kind of wonder as when they were a kid. Right? So you're just reselling and repackaging our youth back to us instead of doing anything like meaningful or exploring anything, which isn't to say that people aren't. Like The Fountainhead, is that the name of that movie? There are movies that are actually attempting to explore like the existential space. There are movies that are actually attempting to like break through the superhero schlock and are trying to tell a story that has something to say deeper than just escapism and fantasy stuff, right? Like, and I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever actually get to the point. Like, because it would be so heartbreaking to me if we as a culture never even really made the attempt on a large scale and meaningful way to explore this medium and attach it to our exploration of our existential selves, right? Like, I feel like there's unplumbed depths. There's something deeper to be found through this medium, and we're just kind of getting started with it. And it seems to me that the capitalist structure is only standing in our way. It's only being a pain in our ass about it. Like, it's literally just like, oh, another Star Wars movie, more Avengers stuff. Okay, another Spider-Man. Okay, like we've literally rebooted in my lifetime. Spider-Man has been rebooted 3 times, like fully reboot. Like, let's tell the origin story again. Reboot. Uncle Ben has died 3 times. Like, that's ridiculous to me. But also kind of indicative of the comic books themselves. Like, there was like Spider-Man, the Incredible Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man. Like, there were like 5 different Spider-Man comics, right? Each of them had their own origin, and each of them had their own telling of all these, like, you reintroduce all the villains again, and everybody knows who they are, right? And so the excitement comes from, well, how has this villain iterated? How have they iterated on the villain? And sometimes the iterations are good, and sometimes they suck, right? But it's all within this sort of, like, fantasy escapism of, like, there is a Spider-Man, right? And you're supposed to be, like, really on board. And everybody is on board with Peter Parker because he's just a kid. That's always the shtick with Spider-Man, why he's so popular, because he's just a kid. And it has kind of feelings of, like, it attaches, like, to something deep inside of us. Like, we know that kids go to war. Like, we know that happens. And so someone like Peter Parker, who's just a kid, who has this enormous burden and responsibility, it makes it very watchable. Art is now utterly dependent on celebrity. It's the fault of identity politics and deconstructionism that art cannot exist as pure art without the artist being the commodity. Yes. Hunter Biden sells paintings. Picasso? It's a joke now. Yeah. Well, and Hunter Biden is obviously just engaging in the grift that is art, right? You can make art now, and it's literally, like, the art system exists as a form of tax evasion. That's what it exists for now. It doesn't exist. It's not like a real art market. Like, it's not, none of that. Like, if you buy art, you can turn around and write it off as a tax kind of thing. And it doesn't matter what the art is. Like, and so you end up with, like, literally these situations where you had a situation where a guy took a banana and duct taped it to the wall, right? And that sold for $100,000. And obviously it was done to launder money. Like, that's obviously what it is. It's a money laundering scheme. And you have a situation where somebody gets paid $100,000 to do a commission painting for a museum, and they send a blank canvas and they title it "Take the Money and Run." Like, it's a money laundering scheme. That's what it is. So, like, nobody cares about the art. Like, the art is just sort of superfluous and secondary now, and it's getting, like, embarrassing. Like, it's getting embarrassing that, like, no, they don't even bother hiding it anymore, right? They don't even need to produce the art any longer, right? Like, they're literally just sending bananas and blank canvases because they all understand that it's just a money laundering scheme. And so, like, in a way, you could make, like, a postmodern observation and be like, well, that the art that they're doing is actually quite in depth if it's a commentary on the fact that this is all just a money laundering scheme, right? Sending a blank canvas is a bold move, right? Akin to when the Dadaists would send a toilet and make people look at a fucking toilet, right? That's what the Dadaists would do, which was very bold and interesting, because the Dadaists were very interested in breaking down the barrier between what is or is not art, right? Like, why is a toilet not seen as art? What artistic credibility does a toilet have? Somebody designed it. Somebody thought about it. Somebody has created a casing for it and has thought at least at some point about the aesthetic value of a toilet. So why don't we? Right? And that's what the Dadaists were doing and what they were up to. And they had some real fun shit. I love the Dadaist movement. The Dadaist movement is super baller. The more I learn about it, the more on board I get with it. And I genuinely think that our culture is in desperate need of a Dadaist movement of its own. Which, okay, I've said the word Dada like 1,000 times now, so I better define what that is. The Dadaist movement happened throughout Eastern Europe post-World War I. And it literally was a confrontation with the horror of World War I and a group of people saying to themselves, yeah, teacher on an exam. What's an example of risk? Student, this. Yeah, exactly. I'd do it. I'd give it to him. The Dadaists stated that the purpose of the movement was the acknowledgement that any culture that generates a world war, like World War I, there is nothing valuable to maintain about that culture. That their goal was to deconstruct the culture and the art down to its fundamental level. And if you want like supreme like Dadaist absurdism, like the absurdism movement is deeply connected with Dadaism, you need to watch Monty Python, the cartoon sketches specifically. Anytime Monty Python would do any kind of cartoon stuff, you're looking at like real high level primo absurdism, right? Where like Dadaists would present things that would confound sort of traditional art critics and things like this, because art critics of the day were always looking for, well, what does this mean? What is it trying to say? What position are you taking? Like what critique are you attempting to lay out? And the Dadaists would literally be like, no, it's nothing. It means nothing. It's meaningless. Like it's meaningless. It doesn't have meaning. It's absurdism for absurdism's sake. And the more absurd it is, the better it is. Because if you take a picture of the Queen of England and then put it into this breakdown of this breakdown picture and subvert it, you depower someone like the Queen of England, right? That instead of us all looking at the Queen and being like filled with patriotism and love for the Queen, you remember the time that a monkey shit on her face in the middle of a cartoon. You're like, ha, right? And so it's absurdism for absurdism's sake in order to deconstruct the entire society. And I feel like we're due for something like that, which is why I think a lot of the defenders of Western civilization are so scared and so upset, because they know how they know they no longer have any credibility. It's obvious. Just like take a look at the news for 10 minutes. It doesn't take any time at all. And they're pretty aware that if the youth movement, like if the millennials and the Gen Z come and do like a Dadaist sort of thing, we can wash this all away. Like literally we can wash all of it away. All of this like superhero shit that we're doing right now will just be like dumb shit that we like, oh yeah, when we were kids, right? Like all that kind of stuff. Like we'll just push it away. It'll all go away, and we could have a fucking Dadaist culture. Things could just dive into the absurd and the surreal and the abstract and the strange, just for the sake of it. Like just for the fucking sake of it. And people do love it. Like if you encounter something online that's just fucking weird and absurd and doesn't seem to have meaning, that's Dadaism, right? And that could become the whole thing. Hey Vince, how you doing? You got a big chunk here, so let me see what you got here, bud. Yeah, it's crazy that there's a computer program that analyzes songs and tells record companies which song will be a hit. Yeah, fucking dumbass bullshit. Like, because literally there is like a rhythm inside of us. There is like a formula that we like. All you got to do is hit that formula and then say like baby, baby, baby over it, and you're set. That's essentially Justin Bieber's whole career. Hello, update regarding ONDP. So apparently several prominent left-wing Twitter people were given a chance to run in the 2022 Ontario election. Apparently, within the past week, many of them have been let go of the ONDP and said that either they were too controversial to run and or were just ignored. This has caused a massive disappointment within left-wing Twitter regarding whether or not they would even vote ONDP next June. what the hell is Andrea and the execs doing? Really disappointed with them. Hope this is just short term. And they don't go full authoritarian. It really does come down to something that we've all seen. Like, we've all seen. It all ties into when Bernie Sanders was running, right, against Clinton and then Biden. The statement was very clear from the Democrats, right, that if Bernie Sanders became the leader of the Democratic Party, they would all vote Trump, right? Because their allegiance is not to the party, it's to the structure, it's to the system of capital. And I have concerns about Andrea in that regard too, that fundamentally, like, Andrea could just be like a placeholder, like just like the last vestige for the neoliberals to sort of fall back on if they have to, you know, that it's all controlled dissent, right? Like, that's the big concern, that it's all just controlled dissent. And the expelling of left-wing people from the NDP party is very similar to how Bernie Sanders wasn't able to attain power within the Democratic Party, even though he won the election. So, like, it's are we surprised? Like, I'm not surprised to hear this at all. In fact, I'm quite, like, yeah, I was expecting it. Like, this idea that, like, the NDP are not going to run communists. Like, they're not going to do that. Like, straight up. Like, if you're in the NDP and you're saying you're a communist, they are not going to run you. Because fundamentally, the NDP is still a neoliberal capitalist system. Like, it's still part of neoliberal capital structure. And even though it has worker support, right, the support that it has from the workers is all within the framework of the capitalist structure, right? The NDP isn't talking about seizing the means of production. It's not talking about transferring the means of production. It's not talking about expelling the capitalists or putting them on trial for their many crimes, of which they are 100% guilty. Like, it's not, they're not talking about that kind of stuff. They're talking about gentle reformism of a capitalist structure that is slightly more generous than what liberals would do. That's all, right? That's it. That's what the NDP has always been. Like, someone like Tommy Douglas, right? When Tommy Douglas is talking about healthcare, right, and Medicare, well, most of Europe had already done it. So he's really just like transferring a system that has been shown to work throughout Europe already in a post-World War II sort of climate here to Canada, and people bit, right? And but he wasn't walking around being like, yeah, we need to seize the means of production, and there needs to be a revolution. We need to get rid of these capitalists. No. So, I mean, if it is getting to the point now where, like, I still think we should support the NDP generally, because people like Doug Ford are psychopaths. Like, Doug Ford has been extremely damaging to Ontario, and it will be lasting damage. Like, it will take, like, I feel like if we, in a concentrated manner, attempted to recover, like actually attempted to recover from what Doug Ford has done to the province, it would take us like 40, maybe 50 years before we were able to start to say, I think that we're better now. I think things are okay now. That's the level of damage. Like Mike Harris is the same story, right? We're still in we're still feeling the echoes of Mike Harris's disastrous premiership. That what Mike Harris did really laid the groundwork for someone like Doug Ford to continue the exploitation and continue the destruction. So comparing those two, yeah, sure, I'll support Andrea and the NDP within this framework, but I also think we should be supporting the erection of a communist party itself, right? That the NDP is not the end game. The NDP in many ways is just the beginning. I mean, maybe not completely relevant to this conversation, but I think we can even look at what Dan talked about in your interview last night about running for council. It's tough to break through. Yeah, it is tough to break through. Because here's the fundamental truth, okay, about politics. And it's so funny because it is one of these talking points that, like, even the elite will hammer on, but they won't really tell you, like, if you show up with 10,000 people and they show up with 1,000 people, you win. That's just the truth, right? Like, that's not really the case in America, where they have like a superdelegate system that can override the vote of the electorate. Like, that's the truth of the American system, that they don't actually have a democracy any longer, that it's just a facade designed to diffuse power and energy, right? That's the point of the democracy that exists in America. But here in Canada, like, you can put your name on the ballot. You need 150 signatures from people who live within the riding, right? So if you can find 150 people to sign a piece of paper, you can get your name on the ballot, right? And then if you turn around and you drive people to the polls, and if your opponents show up and they all get 1,000 and you get 10,000, you win. That is how it works. It's difficult. It takes a lot of building to do it, right? And most party structures are going to want you to go up their structure in order to justify yourself. But you can get on the ballot as an independent. I almost guarantee that if you walk into your riding and you take a look at your ballot initiative, you'll see several people from the Communist Party from as running even as independents. You'll see them on the ballot. They're there, right? So it's possible to do. It's just people are so disenfranchised from the political system that they're not actually active, right? We're not actually politically active, right? Like, the best that you get these days is somebody who maybe reads the news, right? Somebody who tunes into something like this and listens to me yammer on about politics, right? And but like, they're not actually like forming groups or meeting with one another or expressing demands to political parties or anything. Like, if you go to a politician and you're a voting block of 500 people and you say, this is what we want, they'll probably agree to it, and they'll probably put it in writing. 500 people is a lot of people. And if you can shore up 500 votes, yeah, why wouldn't you, right? And if you say, we've got 500 votes, we'll withhold those 500 votes from you if you don't go along with what we're saying, right? Like, that's how politics actually happens, right? This is why I keep saying, like, make friends with the people around you. Get to know your neighbors, right? Because if you get to know your neighbors, you can create coalition groups and you can vote as blocks, right? Like, that's where the true power exists. And as long as your democracy is still a democracy, which here in Canada, it still looks like it is, but you do, like, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to be legwork. It's going to be talking to people. It's going to be communicating. It's going to be attempting to even get them out to vote in the first place, right? It's going to be convincing them that you can be trusted with such a position, right? And because of how empty the neoliberal death cult has become, right? This last election really proved it, right? Nobody really trusts these guys. Everybody just sort of stayed in place. Nobody really cared to move because nobody sees the difference between these guys. And under these circumstances, I feel like the populace is rife for somebody to go in and say, like, hey, I'm running for the Communist Party. I'm running as an independent, right? Like, this is what I stand for. This is what I want. This is what, like, what is your guy doing right now? Like, what are any of these guys doing for you, right? And of course, what will happen, right, is that an election will go by and you'll get like 5% of the vote, right? And you'll feel like, oh, that's a failure, when in reality, like, what are you talking about? You, in your first time out, you got 5% of the people to vote for you. It's an enormous success. And then you just got to grow from there and keep moving from there and keep building from there, right? Because politics is a marathon, a generational marathon at that, right? It's not a sprint. Right? Like, there's not going to be a moment where we all jump up and seize communism, right? Like, that's not how it works. It's a marathon, and you're constantly passing the baton. You're constantly passing the baton. Yeah, I'm not sure. Just very mad the ONDP is going centrist, but then again, I should not be surprised. Well, and also I do think the ONDP still is catering to the boomer crowd, right? They still want those buck a beer voters, right? They still want that. And they're in a tough spot because older people vote and younger people don't. Like, that's kind of what it comes down to. Like, kind of heartbreaking to say, but it is the truth. That, like, you always do... Things still skew towards the elderly, because the elderly are the ones that are taking the time and going out and voting. Whereas the young are just, like, kind of shrugging and being like, oh, well, who gives a shit? Even if they agree, right? Even if they are like, yeah, we should have these things and all that kind of stuff, but oh, well, what are you going to do? Move on with your life. And... believe me, if even 10% more millennials and Zoomers were voting than boomers, the political landscape would look a lot different. But that's not what happens, and it's never been what happens, right? It's always been the case that the elderly vote more than the young, because the young are fucking living their lives and having sex, and the old are thinking about what's going to happen when they're gone. Like, it's almost a truism. Like, it's very rare. Usually, like, when the youth get motivated, that's when revolutions happen, right? When the youth are motivated, that's when things just get overthrown. So the political system will always lean towards the elderly, because the elderly want stability and seek stability. Yeah, that is absolutely key, is to be physically, politically active. Exactly. I mean, your landlord is, right? Your boss is, right? The idea that you shouldn't be is a gift to these guys. Like, the system that we live in has built-in antagonists, right? That's the failing of capitalism fundamentally, right? The fundamental flaw of capitalism is that it builds in antagonists. No society can sustain itself while there are structural antagonists. That's just the truth. Like, you wake up every single day and you fight against your boss who wants to suppress your wages. You fight against your landlord who wants to raise your rent, right? And you even fight against other workers and yourself for promotions and better positions. So you're constantly in an antagonistic fight with all of the structures in your life that matter to you, and including your peers, right? Like, that is already a failure. Like, it's already a failure. Who wants to live in a society like that? Like, if you actually sit down and like discuss it along those terms, who wants to live in a society that's structured this way, where you have antagonists? Villains exist in your society by a default, even if they're nice people, right? Even if you have a nice landlady or a nice landlord, right? Even if your boss is really nice, right? The structure itself creates an antagonism between you, and you villainize one another, right? You are always at odds with one another because you're not actually moving towards the same goal and the same pursuit, right? You're working against one another at all times. And such a society cannot sustain itself, and won't sustain itself. And so the solution to that sort of a thing is to at least be as politically active as your boss and landlord are, right? Because if you don't actually talk to your politicians, if you don't form coalitions, if you don't form groups, if you don't form unions, if you don't organize, if you don't get to know your neighbors, well, then the only people that the politicians are actually talking to are the bosses and the landlords, right? They're not actually even talking to the workers. They're not actually talking to any of these guys. And if they're not even talking to them, they're certainly not going to pass legislation to benefit them, right? So, I mean, I ultimately think that the solution lies in the streets, that's where the real conversation is going to happen. Like, it is going to come down to that we are going to look at the political structure and recognize that the political structure will adapt to the changes that we enforce on the streets. That's usually how it does go. That finally the leader of the country putting his signature on a document that acknowledges the reality of the situation is the last thing, not the first thing. That the populace has already changed its perception. It's already changed its view. It's already changed its ways. It's already operating under a new system, that the powers that be are just finally acknowledging the truth of it and decriminalizing it. Like, think about it in terms of the marijuana conversation, right? Everyone was already smoking weed. Everyone was already smoking weed. People were growing weed. There were whole establishments that were being erected surrounding the idea that everyone was going to be smoking weed. Weed was prolific. It's everywhere. It was already being done. And the powers that be finally just came along and said, fine, we'll just stop arresting you for it, right? Because everybody started to say, like, what the fuck are you arresting us for this thing? This is literally a plant. Like, my Aunt Jane grows this shit in her backyard. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, the only, and you start to realize, like, oh, we're just doing more damage by keeping this thing criminalized. Because it's forcing people to do stupid shit. To, like, buy houses and then gut them and then have, like, a whole grow-up thing to keep the whole thing hidden. Because the truth is, marijuana, you can just fucking grow it. It's just a fucking plant. There's no, like, magical special procedure. Take seed, put in ground, plant, grow, take, smoke, right? And of course, it's like anything, right? The more care you put into it, the better it's going to be, all that kind of stuff. But you don't need to have, like, a big underground industrial bunker. The only fucking reason people were doing this is so they wouldn't get caught growing it. Because for some reason we criminalized a plant. But that's a very specific example of what I'm talking about, where the society itself had already decided. Everybody already decided that weed was fine. Like, we already decided. So the Trudeau government coming along and saying weed is fine signature is just an admission that what the culture is already doing is fine. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying the change happens in the street. Because it's only in the street where we can actually influence people and change the society and change the culture, to form bonds, to see very specifically how much energy is being put behind this idea, to see very specifically how much people are actually willing to put in to fundamentally altering or changing their society in meaningful ways. And it's only after the society is already doing it that the leadership will come along and put a signature on it and say that that's fine. So the streets is where we belong. We belong in the streets. And this capitalist structure has done everything it can to make the streets as hostile as possible, right? Like, the streets are littered with these battle tanks we call cars and trucks. Like, modern day trucks are as big as World War II tanks. Like, really fucking think about that. Like, really fucking think about that. Every time a Dodge Ram or a Ford F-150 or any of this rolls by you, that's a tank. It's a tank rolling through the street. Like, whoa, buddy. Whoa, buddy. Like, you think that you can live in the world and have a decent life while there are, like, tanks? Right? Like, it's so the streets themselves are hostile. They've been taken over by this ridiculous car culture that is just like, we are 100% going to look back on this period of time. The car culture, we're 100% going to look back on this and be like, what the fuck was that? What the bananas go bonkers crazy nuts was this shit? Like, it's the idea that we're giving people fucking tanks so that they can drive around doing what exactly? And literally, it's like one guy in a tank driving 2 hours to get to an office job he hates. Like, it's bonkers to me. It's bonkers to me. But we got to get out on the streets anyway. We have to. Like, there's no other solution at this point. That the power isn't in the parties, which is why I'm kind of nonplussed about this sort of news. That the NDP is expunging left and all that kind of stuff. Okay, the power's not in the party. The power's in the street. That's where the power is. And we're all a little hesitant at the moment because of COVID, but that's not going to last much longer. And people want it to be done. People want it to be done. And once the society starts to awaken and starts to actually reactivate itself, there's a lot of crazy shit that can happen. And there is going to be a lot of crazy shit that happens. One way or another. Right? One way or another. There's going to be some crazy shit that happens. And the best idea is to be there for it. Because the culture's not going to shift if you don't involve yourself in it. And the culture exists in the streets. Doesn't exist in the ballot box. The ballot box is literally the last step. Literally the last step. And if most people are just showing up for the very, very, very fucking end, to me that's like the people who watch like the very last game of the playoffs. You know what I mean? That like their team it has ascended up through like the standard play, has been going through the playoffs. You haven't been paying attention at all because you expect them to lose or whatever. And then literally like they're in the 7th game of a 7th frame and then you watch. That's what most people do. That's what most people do. When, if there wasn't a core group of people who were always watching from the very beginning, who were always participating from the very beginning, then there wouldn't be a team, would there? So it's about getting more involved in serious ways, and that power exists pretty much exclusively, in my view, in the streets. Like, I've been talking to people more and more who have been telling me, you know, there are shows that like point a camera at someone and then there's like a window outside, right? Why don't you just go occupy that window so that when they're filming, they have to show your sign, right? Like Isabella has this enormous sign that says like compassion for disabled people on it. Take that sign, get it in front of like breakfast television or whatever, right? Like start taking over shit. Like that's the truth of it. Like start taking shit over. And just like don't let them pretend like it doesn't exist. Like that's really what it comes down to. But like and I know it's difficult because we live in this, we're all exhausted, right? The capitalist system is exhausting. It's exhausting to be surrounded by these battle tanks flying by all the time. It's exhausting to commute an hour or 2 hours to get to a job that you can barely tolerate, dealing with people who you wouldn't give a moment's time to if it wasn't for the fact that you're literally selling yourself to a structure that is actively working to currently destroy you, but even if it was in the best possible circumstance, is currently working to create villains and antagonists for you to have to struggle against, right? So it sucks that I have to say to you, like, okay, not only do you need to struggle against the antagonists, your daily antagonists, which is your boss and your landlord, right? Not only do you need to deal with a beleaguered and frazzled, anxiety-ridden, depressed populace, right, on the regular, but now you also have to take the other step and wade into the political weeds and deal with all of this shit that's going on around you, and you've got to just kind of take it, right? Like, I did that video. I was talking yesterday about sex, right? I talked a lot about sex yesterday. So I did like a little 15-minute clip of it. I talked about sex, guys. I actually got like the whole thing. I talked about it for like 50 minutes. It was a good third of the whole episode. And so I found a 15-minute clip and I put it up and I completely called it. I put it up and within the first 5 minutes, people were coming back at me and shitting on me in exactly the way that I predicted, right? Just like these really petty, vindictive, like people were saying to me like, "Oh, you've got big incel energy," right? That's what they're saying of me because I'm talking about incels without shitting on them, basically. So it comes down to. Someone literally said to me, Oh, what? You're completely wrong. Body positivity has never been better. Incels are dirty and filthy. It's like literally like, oh, so body positivity and like sex positivity is high. And then immediately you contradict yourself with this other statement. Like, and so people are living in this like heightened state of absurdism already. And so we need to come along and start breaking the culture apart. Like one of the great Dadaist expressions, in my view, is mocking SpongeBob. If you guys don't know, the mocking SpongeBob meme is actually Dadaism in like full scale. So you take this and this picture of SpongeBob, and then this type font, right, where this like lowercase, uppercase, lowercase, uppercase, and then you could put like exclamation point, and then 111. You type out the word one, and then another exclamation point to really make it absurd. And it's just completely mocking and defanging the thing that you're talking about, and it's totally a way to insult and mock. And this, in my view, is one of the paths forward. Right, is to completely just like these guys don't have any credibility left whatsoever. They've got no credibility left. So all of their slogans and everything, we should just show them this. Literally, like, just get a job. How are you going to pay for that? Like, all that stuff. Literally this. Just because their position is completely bereft of logic, compassion, empathy, rational thinking. It's like, it has no credibility whatsoever. And so why are we attempting to engage with it seriously? Like, why are we trying to convince these people? Like, they can't be convinced, obviously, because there's just no more convincing to be done, right? Like, the policies are cheaper, like the Medicare situation in the United States, right? It's just cheaper, right? So standing up and saying how you're going to pay for that is stupid. Right? It's a stupid thing to say. And the idea that we're supposed to stand there and be like, well, this is the, and there's also, and then, of course, like, no, we don't need to take that seriously anymore. It's no longer being delivered in good faith, if it ever was. Right? We should mock it. We should mock it explicitly and not take these people seriously because they're not serious people. I mean, they're only serious insofar as they're attempting to destroy us, but, like, they don't have any credibility. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying, like, the culture needs a good dose of Dadaism. Like, we need a good dose of Dadaism because none of this is legitimate. And if America does actually invade China, you gotta think that that's a point, right? You gotta think that that's a moment when the invasion of China has to be a moment when everybody knows that America is no longer a credible nation. Like, it's not to be dealt with. You're not supposed to have conversations with it. You're not supposed to, like, create alliances and deal with this. Like, the only thing that you should be doing to America is creating a non-aggression pact and hoping that they actually abide by it, which no guarantee there, right? That, like, literally at this stage in the game, especially if they invade China. And so, like, I'm already to this point, but an invasion of China would 100% be the moment when we could say what the Dadaists said of World War I, which is that any culture that's willing to do this, it has, like, there's nothing valuable here. If the logical endpoint is this war, right? If this is the logical endpoint of Western civilization, then Western civilization has nothing of value. There's nothing here worth keeping. And I'm already there. There is nothing of value in Western civilization, right? Like, maybe the foundational documents that are worth keeping because the people who are upholding Western civilization don't even read them, certainly don't follow them, certainly don't listen to them, right? So perhaps you could make an argument for the foundational documents. But even then, I'm sort of like, yeah, we should keep those like the way that we keep things in a museum, right? Here are these documents from a bygone era of bloodthirsty monsters who literally bomb the shit out of people for no reason. I mean, U.S. has bases all over the world. Name another country that the U.S. would allow to occupy them. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's... This, to me, is the big difference. Like, people keep trying to paint places like Russia and China as empires of themselves. But, like, these places are not building military bases. Like, that's one of the big indicators of what makes an empire, right? Like, why isn't it just the American nation that's, like, destroying a place? Why is it an empire? And it's because it has all these fucking outposts and it has all these military bases, right? Well outside of its territory. And, like, that's what empires do, right? Empires have, like, the core nation that they give a shit about. So, like, the Roman Empire, right? Italy was, like, the Roman nation, right? And then they had all these fucking outposts all over the place. And they went in and took over. And some of them were more firmly established because they were closer. Man, this conversation is making me want to play a game called Rome Total War. Oh, man, that game is great. That game is great. Anyway. Yeah, I'm there too, Major Hydrock. We all need to get there, right? Like, we need to get to a place where we're not even being angry about how stupid they are. That it's not even us being like, oh, right? Like, that no longer exists. That it is like a scoffing, eye-rolling, oh, how fucking embarrassing for you, right? Like, that's my position. Like, if somebody says, how are you going to pay for that to me? I really, like, it immediately pings in my brain, like, ooh, that's embarrassing for you, dude. Like, ooh. I'm so sorry that you're behind the 8 ball on this. Like, that's where I'm at. And we need to get more open about it. We need to get more flagrant about that. Because, like, these guys are losers. Like, these guys are enormous losers. Like, you can't be a bigger loser than this. How could you be a bigger loser than being a dude who's so fragile and snowflakey that you have to literally destroy entire people and destroy entire nations while enslaving your own society, right? Like, that's extreme fragility, right? Like, and I was talking earlier about, like, what is the rot at the base of Western civilization, and I really do think it is just, like, white dudes who are scared their cocks aren't good enough. Like, that seems to be it. Like, it seems to literally be like, oh, if we don't have the biggest cocks, then we'll bomb them, right? If we aren't 100% always in control of this, if we are not the God King empires of this place, then we will destroy it. It's just like, what a profoundly distorted way to view the world. Like, what an enormous loser, right? Like, these Americans are fucking losers. Like, there's nothing there worth venerating or honoring, acknowledging as worthwhile. These guys are enormous fucking losers. And soon it's going to get really, really obvious that they're enormous fucking losers. Like, for God's sakes, like, all of their media is just comic book kid shit. Like, stuff that I was reading when I was 14, for God's sakes. Like, this is where they're at. And we're not but even, like, a statement like this, Null, first, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Like, there is only one country in the world that has proven they are capable of actually deploying nuclear warheads on civilian populations. And that has, like a foreboding, like, grumpiness about it. Just the statement of it. Not grumpiness, that's not the right word, but just like a there's like a fear or like a kind of thing like this that comes with a statement like this. And I feel like what I'm trying to drive towards is more like, sorry, I've gotten into a place where I'm like, I've got something in my mind that I want to say, but I don't have it formulated properly, so I can't quite articulate it. But I feel like I'm, like, right on the tip of it, which is that, like, yeah, I just keep coming back. Like, these guys are enormous fucking losers. Like, think about how that's such a fucking loser move. Like how little boyish, right? How fragile. Like, we're gonna show the Soviets that we're the ones that are in charge. Yeah, we're gonna we got a big bomb. Big bomb. Yeah, we got the biggest bomb. We got the biggest bomb. We're gonna drop the biggest bomb, and then the biggest bomb will drop. It'll be so big. Yeah, we're the best. We're the best. These guys are fucking enormous losers. Like there's nothing dignified. There's not like all the like George Washington standing on the end of the boat holding the flag, like the majesty, like the talking about like the story of the national anthem and all of this kind of stuff. Every single little tiny line, every dotted I, everything that has come out of America from its inception to this very moment and onward is a bunch of fucking losers being the biggest losers that any loser can possibly be in the society. And the only reason they are able to do it is because they're just big. They're just a big, dumb loser. They're not cool. Like, their iterations of what cool should look like are cringy and stupid. Like the Fonz with his like clunk clunk and the thing comes down. Like it's ridiculous. Somebody like Frank Sinatra. Right, you can listen to Frank Sinatra and love his music, but it's incredibly narcissistic. It's just, he might as well be standing in front of you jerking off the whole time he's singing. I did it my way. Yeah, I'm the greatest. I'm the greatest. The boomer generation, the greatest generation. Right? These guys are a bunch of fucking losers. I expect that if a conflict were to turn nuclear, it would be America that escalates it to that level, of course. Well, and what's so funny is, like, the Rand report that they did about the invasion of China assumes that the Chinese would not. Right? They have a baked-in assumption that the Chinese wouldn't do it. Like, so they're such enormous losers that only we have the tenacity or the balls to drop nukes. Good timing, Loaf. Good timing, bud. Well, and it assumes America would not. Yes, of course. And the whole conversation around that particular point, I've said this before, but it's absolutely the truth. It's the height of arrogant narcissism, like sociopathic narcissism, to believe that you can unleash a full-scale war. Like, they're talking about destroying 25 to 30% of China's economy, right? That you can unleash that type of war and then control it. It requires a deep, deep sociopathic narcissism to believe that you can unleash that force and then control it. They're not going to control it. Like, that's not what's going to happen. The Greeks created a god of war for a reason, because they understood that war itself is a force that once unleashed, you do not control. You simply manage, right? You simply manage it and attempt to deal with it. And war will end when war chooses to end and not a moment earlier. And this idea that the Americans are going to go in, take a bunch of military casualties in order to inflict massive economic damage against the Chinese and then go home and that'll be the end of the story is fucking childish. Like, you have to be a real, like, grade, like, not even in grade school. Like, really, really, like, grade, age 2, 3, maybe 4, to believe that you can unleash that kind of a war and then control it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. The far more likely outcome of a war with China is almost the immediate escalation to nuclear conflict. Like, I don't understand why they think it would be anything other than that. Like, they genuinely are saying, yeah, it should remain conventional. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You think you're going to go in and, like, bomb a whole bunch of cities, murder, like, 100 million people, destroy their economy, like, wreak havoc on them and they're not going to seek retaliation? Like, are you stupid? I mean, yes, the answer is obviously yes. Like, these guys are enormous losers, right? Like, they're enormous losers. Like think about, like, the most, like, rednecky, hillbilly, like, right? Like, and I hate to get, like, stereotypical about it, but the just imagine, like, the worst iteration of an American that you can think of in your mind and realize that that's them. Like, that just some of them have learned how to present well, right? Some of them have learned how to stand in front of you and be like, hello, we're going to move forward together as Americans, right? I'm here to make America great again, you know? Like, some of them have learned how to speak a little slower and have a little dignity in the way that they speak, right? But it's all fucking pageantry. It's all just like a peacock, right? Unfurling its feathers. The truth of every American, in my perspective, because this is what they seem to want, is that they're all just fucking living in the swamp. That's all of them, right? Sorry, man, if you're letting your nation go over, like, if you were living on a block, right, and you were in a family, right, and you had parents, and you were living in, like, a fairly nice house, right, and down the street from you was another family that was renovating their house and had very quickly, like, built a fairly nice house and was talking to the neighbors, and everybody really liked dealing with that family down the street, and they were talking to them and building more arrangements and building a little community and all this kind of stuff. And then your parents walked over there with guns and shot that family up and burnt the house down and then came back. Like, if you didn't say anything about it, then you're just the same as they are. The propaganda in America is the best in the world. Well, and we are getting to a point now where it's like the people want to be propagandized. This is something I'm beginning to realize with the China conversation, especially, that, like, most people will say to you that they do not trust the media, right? That they don't trust the media. They don't trust the government. They don't trust what the government says. They don't trust what their media is telling them, right? And it is actually true that, like, people won't really go along with what media sources are saying, and they'll look for alternative sources, and they'll do all this kind of stuff and so on and so forth. And that itself is creating certain problems in the country, but people are doing it because they no longer trust the media. Except on the issue of China. On the issue of China, there is lockstep agreement in the populace that what the media is saying is completely true and completely accurate. And the reality of it is that they're doing that because they want to destroy China. Because China isn't white. Sorry. Hate to bring it back to white supremacy, but just, like, you know, we're constantly discussing what is the rot at the base of the society. Well, white supremacy certainly is part of this conversation. And, like, there's just something intrinsic that seems to exist in the American consciousness that if they're not white, then we can do what we want with them. Wanting to be propagandized is a result of being propagandized. Yeah. Well, tell me sweet little lies, right? Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. I used to work at a factory that made HVAC controllers, and literally every piece we assembled was from China. How the F would the economy work without the goods and labor of China? Well, and that's the other part of it, right? Like, they're talking about the destruction that it's going to wreak on China. But, like, that means that all of those consumer goods that are coming from China are not going to come, right? And, like, that's most of it. There comes a point where I start to wonder if, like, they're going to do something like this specifically to destroy themselves. That just, like, they're waiting for an event moment to actually destroy the place, and so they're just going to do it. But I think that they're enormous losers. Like, I just don't think that they think these things through. I think that they, like, literally are creating plans to do this stuff, and there's nobody There's nobody in their institutions, and it seems like in their entire society, who is even thinking through the next step, right? That like, hey, if you bomb this place, most of the world will hate you. If you bomb this place, all of the goods that come from there will stop. I just think that like nobody is actually talking that way. That they really have gotten backed into like a straight up, I'm a big monkey and I got the gun and I'm gonna use it and they're getting bigger and so we're gonna use the gun. We're gonna down. Let's show them. Then they'll know we're in charge. We're the ones that are in charge. That's what's going on. That's right. USA. Really, like really. And I don't think there's. And I would put money on the table to think that if anybody in their establishment stood up and said, like, are we concerned at all about, what's going to happen to us when all of those consumer goods just stop coming our way, I bet you if somebody even said it even as calmly as that, they would just be dismissed. We don't need that talk here. We're here to fuck shit up. We're not here to build a society. Well, and what I said there is actually just like the raw truth of it. Like, they don't give a fuck if China stops delivering consumer goods to America. They don't give a fuck about Americans at all. Like, they literally, we have watched 700,000 Americans die because of the leadership's inaction and lack of desire to actually do anything about it. Like, we've watched it happen. Like, they don't give a fuck about it. Like, the leaders of America do not, and the owners of America do not give a fuck about America at all. They care about themselves and they care about their own wealth and prestige. And so if bombing China means that a bunch of Americans are going to suffer, so that doesn't even compute. It's not even part of the equation. They don't even think about it. It doesn't enter the conversation. Didn't the Americans manufacture a microprocessor shortage by sanctioning China? Probably. I don't know enough about that. I think if it was laid out that the war would shut down the dollar store, we would see mobilization in the streets against war. Yeah, good luck on that count. The protest movement against the Iraq war was virulent. There was a lot of people on the streets about that one, and didn't change anything, right? The U.S. military is evolving towards automation, and it should be, because the government can't count on people to join willingly anymore. So there you go. Yeah, automation, and also I had something and it's gone. That's okay. Walmart and Amazon can find themselves devoid of products also. No more iPhone. Yeah, like, but again, like, does the empire care? It obviously doesn't care about its own citizens. Like, obviously, right? So, okay, so you guys can't get iPhones anymore. Too bad, right? And they may even like stand up and say things like, we all have to make sacrifices to fight the great evil that exists in China, right? And people will just be like, oh yeah, I guess that's okay. Yeah, I guess I could go without another iPhone. Yeah, that's a good point. We are fighting the great evil. Yeah, China is definitely the one that's the evil one. Wow, like three guys came in all at once. We got g'day mates from Demand Better. How you doing, bud? Tomfoolery, how you doing? We need to be evolving automation, not the military. Good opportunity to say, guys, please make sure to hit like, share, subscribe, comment on the video. Give me some money if you got a buck jangling around your pocket. All the stuff. I know it sucks that I gotta say it, but I gotta say it because it's I just paid rent, so yeah, you feel the knife at your throat a little bit. Shortages expand profit margins because the prices never return to previous levels. Yeah, that is a good point, Grinning Guys, that you can set a new price and then just keep it there no matter what happens. Every military contractor would depend on China for parts, supply, and equipment. No China, no military. Again, they're really not thinking about it. Like they're really not. Like we're just witnessing a big dumb monkey with lots of big guns. That's really what we're seeing. The truth is that Chinese goods were cheaper, so greedier capitalists bought them, so American manufacturers folded, and now there's no manufacturing infrastructure as well. That's the other part of it. Like, you're seriously telling me that the manufacturing base for the world right now is China, and you're seriously telling me that you're going to go over there and drop a bunch of bombs on them, and then what do you think's going to happen? They're going to outproduce you, because wars are not sprints. They are marathons. And the United States has no manufacturing base, so they'll go over there, poke the bear, right? Kill a bunch of people they don't have to kill, cause a lot of disruption they don't have to cause, and then the Chinese will build their military back and the United States will not. And then what do you think happens? Right? It's exactly what happened to the Nazis when they fought against the Soviets. That the Nazis went in, blew up a whole bunch of stuff, caused a lot of problems for the Soviets, forced the Soviets to like do some massive relocation and do some massive changes. And then the Soviets just outproduced them. Adolf Hitler himself said that the reason why he lost on the Eastern Front was because he didn't expect the Soviets to be able to produce as efficiently as they did. He outright admitted that the communist economy defeated the Nazi economy, the capitalist economy, right? The socialism equal fewer iPhones, communism, no iPhones. And like, oh no, you don't get another iteration of this iPhone that breaks in 2 years. Like, fuck that. Fuck all that shit. And it's, comment Aaron Rommel, lack of logistics. And they're just not, again, it just falls back into my larger sort of point, which is that these guys are losers. Like, America is just full of fucking enormous losers who we should make fun of. Like this, with the SpongeBob meme, right? This is the style that we should be interacting with these guys, because they're such enormous fucking losers. Like, we can have all the compassion and empathy we want in the world, but at the end of the day, like, it is just becoming harder, right? I do have compassion, and I do have empathy, and I do have this kind of stuff for these guys, but a lot of what I'm seeing is self-inflicted. Like, it's really, 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 really hard to feel bad for a guy who, a ball hits his nuts, right? But if he's the one that kicks the ball and it hits the wall and comes back and hits him in the nuts, you don't really feel that bad for him, right? You are kind of just like, yeah, you fucked around and you found out. Like, unfortunate. I wish that didn't happen to you, but you're the one that kicked the ball, right? Wait a second, the American planned economy America doesn't have a planned economy, right? The American planned economy is based on the military using only proprietary American technology. It's the rationale for the military industrial corporate welfare, America only. $750 billion in planned economy. I mean, it is the only thing that they actually do spend money on and plan. But like, they can't sustain it, and they certainly wouldn't be able to sustain it through a war with China, right? Like, how do they sustain that? They're literally tapping their own citizenry out in order to do it, right? And I just can't imagine a war with China would be disastrous for the entire world, but mostly a disaster for America. That, like, sure, China will take casualties, like they will lose people for sure, and they'll lose infrastructure, sure, and all of that. But like, America will essentially out itself as completely fascist at this point, right? Like, who seriously believes that America is anything but the Nazis if they do this, right? If somebody stands up in front of me and attempts to defend capitalism or America or any of this kind of stuff, you are talking to a Nazi. It's not different. It's no different, in my view. I mean, I'm already kind of there already, but after a post-invasion of China, yeah, these guys are fucking Nazis. Straightforward. The country that only starts conflicts with countries with the smallest economy and loses. Yeah, and that's another part of it, Null, right? Like, these guys are such enormous losers that they haven't won a war, right? They don't win wars. Like, they claim to have won World War II, but everybody knows that's the Russians, right? That the Russians won that war. The Americans just came in and kind of dusted it up, right? And the Americans fucking, like, what, they're dropping nukes on, like, defenseless island nations, civilian populations. Like, that's their big claim to fame. And then since then, it's just been a series of humiliating losses against countries with no air force, no navy, and military technology that's 40 years older than theirs. Like, it's just a series of embarrassments where it really just does look like a big bully walking around picking on the weak people, and then now they've tricked themselves into believing that they're actually good at war, that they're actually competent at this thing they keep losing at, right? They've drank their own Kool-Aid, right? They've bought into the idea that they are actually good at war when they suck. Obviously, they suck, and so now they think that, well, we can pick on a little guy like Iraq or Afghanistan, blow them up, and do all that kind of stuff with no consequences whatsoever. So we can do the same thing to China. No. Like, fucking no. Like, what? No, dude. Not at all. Like, not at all. So these losers who have done nothing but lose, right? All they've ever done is lose, are now going to pick a fight that they cannot win. Like, they are not, and think about think about it in terms of just like the public relations disaster of it, right? The like foreign policy disaster of it. Like, who do you think comes out looking better in this situation? Do you think it's America or do you think it's China? I think China is going to gain a ton of sympathy. I think there's going to be a lot of sympathetic people towards what's going on in China, especially if the UN, like, can you fucking imagine what would happen if the United States actually moved forward with this bombing thing, trying to lean on something like the Uyghur genocide narrative, and then the UN comes out with its report saying that there is no Uyghur genocide and explicitly states like what is actually happening in China, right? Or in Xinjiang, right? Which is a very complex war that's going on in the province of Xinjiang. Like there's a pretty major security issues going on in that area. And if they actually came out with this report, it's going to be the Iraq WMD shit all over again, where the Americans are going to be like, oopsie, right? That's the narrative that's going to come out of America. They're going to go bomb the shit out of China, right? And then this report will drop discrediting the lie that was their impetus to go in, and the Americans will be like, oopsie, break it, bought it, right? Only this time, instead of doing it to somebody who's like this little tiny weenie that they can just push over, it's going to be some fucking giant. And the giant's going to be like, whoopsie? Oh, yeah, okay, whoopsie. And then he's going to fucking kick it across the field. Like, it's brutal. Chinese could occupy Bangladesh, Thailand, Cambodia. No more textile goods, electronic parts for cents an hour. Yeah. There's an ammunition shortage in the U.S. right now. It's not officially at war right now. Yeah, that's cute. Somebody tried to have this conversation with me online. I don't take this seriously at all. Oh, the Americans, they're not officially at war. Like, fuck, get fucked. Get fucked. Like, America is at war all the time. It's in a war with itself, for God's sakes. Like, its whole culture is war. And it's so embarrassing because they're very bad at it. The U.S. military really needs to create some internal free markets so that profit motive between troops will make the institution run really efficiently. Yeah. I can't imagine a more effective way to destroy a military, right? Like, can you imagine if these principles were actually let to run? Like, just the chaos of it. Just the straight out chaos of like you're launching artillery shells, for Christ's sakes, right? Like, the idea that the guy that's launching the artillery is not in direct communication with other people in the field. Like, you need to have tight controls or else you will bomb your own people. And it still happens. It still fucking happens. Okay, will definitely be a proxy war in Korea or something. Okay, guys, like let's go. Let's go. I've been talking about China and how it'll be a disaster. Let's just fucking go. Okay. The South China Sea. Do 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 do. So truly, the goal is not actually to do much on the mainland. Honestly. Like, their goal is to destroy ships, right? That the reason why China is so, like, pounding on the pulpit for the Belt and Road Initiative, right, is because they know that their shipping lanes are under threat. That the goal is not to, like, push into Hong Kong, take Hong Kong, build fortifications, right? Push in, take over land like it's a video game, and the map is going from red to blue, right? Spread blue throughout the map, push in, arrows this way, take over Chinese territory. That's not what they're going to do. None of that is going to happen. There are trillions of dollars worth of goods that come out of the ports in Shanghai, Hangzhou, right, Qingdao, and go down here, right? Come on through, get out here, all this kind of stuff. Come on down, go up through the Suez Canal, get to Europe, right? Come down over here, right? Get sent to America, get sent to Canada, right? Like, there's tons and tons and tons and tons of boats. Boats. Big fucking boats, right? That's what they're going to blow up. That's what they're looking to do. They're looking to do hit and run tactics in the South China Sea and the Yellow Sea and the East China Sea. They're looking to destroy shipping lanes, right? They're not looking to blockade because they don't want to create targets, right? They want to be very mobile, like they're terrorists, right? Like, that's what they're doing. They're committing terrorism, massive acts of terrorism, and they're going to destroy shipping lanes, right? And that's the goal. And the Chinese, of course, have their own military, and they'll be looking to protect those sea lanes. And there's interesting political dynamics that are happening here in the Philippines, with the Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Myanmar, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and Australia. And the big question marks, of course, are always, which way are these guys going to jump? Right? Like, America is making AUKUS, right, which is an alliance between Australia, the UK, and America to get nuclear submarines built in the region so they can have them deployed in 10 years. But, like, has China made similar agreements with any of these guys? Not really. Right? So these guys are actually not beholden to China should war break out. So the question becomes, well, what are they going to do? Right? And even more than that, America has actually sold fighter jets to many of these places. Right? America has sold military gear to the Philippines, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, right? Indonesia, Papua New Guinea. They've sold weapons to all of these island nations that are going to be directly in the line of fire should a war break out in the region. It's going to be a clusterfuck. Who's going to jump where? What's going to do what? Right? But it is all going to be focused on, it's not like, I do think that the Americans are fairly well aware that if they go in and they, like, bomb, like, Shanghai, that's just, like, no one's going to cooperate with them, right? No one's going to cooperate with them. But if they blow up a bunch of boats, you know? So that's what they're doing. They're going to blow up a bunch of shipping lanes, a bunch of boats, make it so that you can't get boats out of the South China Sea. Just block this whole thing down, right? Using marauding tactics, sending fighter jets and just bombing the shit out of carriers and stuff like this, while the Chinese attempt to intercept. And China is scrambling around with the Belt and Road Initiative, right? Most specifically in the Xinjiang province. And the reason why the Xinjiang province is so focused on is because that's where the CIA are funneling troops into, right? The CIA funnels Uyghur separatists who they train in Syria, right? They funnel them right through Africa into Xinjiang, right? There's enormous terrorist organizations that exist within Xinjiang. The East Turkestan independence movement is in Xinjiang, right? So China is already amidst this war. They're in the middle of the war already. It's just, are they going to start launching rockets and shit? China could destroy America by simply stopping trade with them and dumping all the US dollars, and every ally of America will run into China's open arms. Well, that's guaranteeing a war. If you do that, the Americans will just go to war with you. Like that, and that's what China is attempting to avoid, right? China's attempting to avoid a war. It's completely not in China's interest to be involved in a war. Like, why would they want this? Why would they want to spend even a dime dealing with this issue, right? I'm sure that if I was living in China, or if I was a Chinese planner in the Communist Party, I would be like, God damn it, man, these fucking Americans. Like, and it's the psychotic, like, bipolar nature of America. Like, that in one moment they're shaking your hand, being like, trade deal, yeah, let's do a kind of thing. Like, they're selling stuff, they're trying to make movies and put them in China and all this kind of stuff. And then at the next instance, they're literally bombing them. You know? Like, you don't get much more fucking psychotic and bipolar than this. Where you're just like, yeah, we'll exchange goods and trade and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, you guys can make our stuff, and like we'll do this, and then we'll make movies and like big Hollywood films and put them in China and all this. Yeah, it'll be great. And we'll be great buddies and all this kind of stuff. That's fucking that's psychotic behavior. Like, if I was China, and this is the other side of this that the Americans are obviously not considering. Like, if they start bombing the shit out of China openly, like, China's not going to trade with these guys. Like, they're not going to, like, that's the end of this Hollywood movie thing. That's the end of, like, Western companies going into China and doing stuff. Like, that's not going to fucking happen. And the reverberations, the ripples that such an event will cause are only going to hurt the United States, right? I shouldn't say only, but just, like, the United States are, like, we are watching a guy pull out a gun and just start shooting it wildly into the air and shoot himself in the fucking leg, right? And then there'll be some other guy that he shot. And while everybody goes and tends to the guy that this guy shot, he's going to stand there with his leg and be like, oh, my leg! Oh, and he's going to look around and no one's going to even be paying attention to him at all. Like, the only reason anyone will pay attention to the guy that shot himself in the leg is to call him a fucking loser. Which, guess what? He fucking is. Nike, just nuke it. That's right. That's right. The Oxus of Evil. I rather like that. That's quite funny. I see how it could play out that China doesn't have to occupy anyone. Just have robust economic partnerships and nations siding with them because they are sane. Stable is the word to use, right? I guess sane is stable, but stable, right? China goes into regions, makes trade agreements, helps build infrastructure projects. When they say they're going to do something, they do it, right? And moreover than that, they don't impoverish places, right? Like, they have actually straight up just forgiven debts. Like, this is the thing that people don't really know about China, is that when China creates these arrangements in order to build infrastructure, they understand that the infrastructure is the victory, right? That we went, like, for example, what's happening in Afghanistan, right? So they're already funneling goods into Afghanistan, right? And the way that the Chinese are operating is they're going to give Afghanistan a loan, right? And Afghanistan may turn around and be like, look, we're having trouble paying off that loan or any of that kind of stuff. And China will just be like, don't worry about it, dude. Because the infrastructure is the victory, right? The financial victory is not really a victory. Like, the nickel and diming and the worrying about, like, the paper trail and all that kind of stuff, like, that's some whingy bullshit. Like, who actually cares about that, right? What we actually care about is building a rail from here to here. Like, how do we get this rail built? How do we do it? Oh, there's, like, some financial weeds that we got to go through. Let's not worry about that. Let's fucking build the rail. Build the fucking rail, right? And the Chinese understand that. Whereas the Americans will, like, go into a region the way the IMF does, right? The IMF goes into a region, bribes their politicians in order to force a loan on the populace, and then impoverishes the nation when they can't pay back. Just take a look what happened to Greece. That's exactly the story of Greece. Like, it's also the story. It's like the story of all of these nations, all of the South American nations. Like the and should America begin openly bombing Chinese assets? Yeah, people are going to pick sides, and it's going to be very difficult to pick America. Like, people will pick America because they're threatened, right? Like Canada, for example. Like, Canada's going to go along with America because it's like, oh, God, well, what are we supposed to do? Like, for real, though, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, we can't not, right? We can't not go along with the United States. They're literally a demon. Like, they're a psychotic, like, loser. Like, we hate them, but there they are. What are we going to do about it? Like, what are we going to do about it? So, like, the Americans are going to be like, sell weapons, and we'll be like, yes, sir. Whatever you say, just don't bomb us. Chinese controlled Strait of Hormuz, yeah. Wouldn't that be something? China's USD holdings are like an economic nuclear arsenal. The empire is built on the dollar. Most actions by the US are to protect the status of their dollar. It's true. It's true. Bipolar politics, the perfect description of the two-party system, yeah. They're the same picture, bipolar. In that it's one party with two sides, yeah. The American two parties are mirrors with different outrage triggers, yeah. Yes, we agree. My apologies. I might be drinking. I'll be doing a little bit of that after this one for sure. Although I can't do a lot because I gotta actually go to work tomorrow. And it's not the real work, it's the fake capitalist work. Gotta give people cookies. People need their cookies. You know? The company I worked for making controllers got bought by China, which led to layoffs when they were full automation, but they keep the Made in Canada sticker and sell them mostly back to China. That's so dumb. The only way to get NASA astronauts to space is via the Soviet Soyuz. Columbia and Challenger exploded, so no more space exploration for the US. I have no problem with China, though. China was always the majority customer base. Well, my perspective of China is always, like, they're just people. Like, they're just fucking people who are trying their best to do things, right? They're just trying to figure shit out. They're just, and it looks like they have actually figured something out here. That there's been an institution that has arisen from the people themselves, right? The Chinese Communist Party, that has insisted that there is a general standard of living that has had major successes. Like, the freeing of Tibet. Like, it's so funny that there's a free Tibet movement in North America. Tibet got freed. It got freed by the Chinese. Before the Chinese Communist Party rolled into Tibet, the average life expectancy of the serfs who lived in the theocratic feudal system that existed in Tibet at the time, the average life expectancy was 35. Right? Like, so your average life expectancy of your serfs that you're working to death is 35. They can't possibly get anywhere. They can't do anything. They certainly aren't living a good life. And so the Chinese Communist Party rolls in and resolves it. The quality of life jumps. The amount of leisure time, the amount of literacy, the amount of everything that happens in Tibet goes through the roof. Major success. Major success. Like, anybody who tells me that the freeing of Tibet by the Chinese Communist Party was anything but a massive success is illiterate or duplicitous. Those are the only positions that you can take. Like, even a cursory reading, even like literally the Coles note, the Wikipedia page will fucking get you there. And so this force that's willing to do that takes over mainland China. And since then, it seems like they've been making decisions, tough, difficult decisions, in order to secure themselves as a protected, safe, economic powerhouse. And it's completely working. It's completely working. And it's coming about because there is an institutional force that straight up wants it to be that way. And that's it. That really the secret right? The secret in the sauce for how did China do any of this? Well, enough people got together and thought it'd be nice if this place was nice. And that's it, right? Enough of them got together and looked at one another and said, hey, how about instead of all this shittiness, we try to make everything nice. And everybody kind of looked at one another and went, yeah, it's good. Seems like a good idea. Right? Whereas in America, the position is, yeah, everything should be shitty. We should love our suffering, right? Wallow in your suffering, right? That's like the intellectual statement that's come out of the recent brand of intellectuals, quote unquote, that exist in America. Just learn to love your suffering. Find meaning in your suffering, right? That's the best you're ever going to get from these guys. Because, like, they're certainly not going to ameliorate your suffering. They're certainly not interested in that. Like, there is no organization in the United States that is actually interested in ameliorating the suffering of the citizenry. Like, not one. Not since they shut the nightclubs down. Yeah, every country has its issues, right? But some countries are trying to solve those issues, and some are not. Like, and when I take a look at China, I see a country that's attempting to solve its issues. And when I take a look at America, I see a country that's not interested in solving issues. Like, for God's sakes, like, they've had kids going into their schools and shooting the place up for 20 plus years now. What's their solution? School shooter drills. Just live with it. Yeah, just live with it. That's fine. No other fucking country has this problem. Right? This is a uniquely American phenomenon. Right? No, that's fine. We'll just live with it. Right? It's like you go talk to a guy and he's got a rash on his arm. He's like scratching the rash, and you're like, hey bud, you should go see a doctor about that. Get that issue resolved. No, it's okay. No, it's fine. You know, it's just a little itch. It's fine. It'll go away soon. And then the next time you see him, his arm is like blazing red. The rash is like taking over. He can't even move this arm, and he's just like. And you're like, dude, go see a doctor. Get this thing resolved. No, it's fine. I'm just trying to find, I find meaning in the suffering. That's what it is. It hurts, but it's, but it's good. It keeps me humble. It reminds me of the good things in life. I have returned from karate. Fantastic, Alex. I gotta tell you, Alex, having only met you a couple of times and seen a couple of your videos, karate is exactly right. Straight up. I get it. I look at you and I think karate. For sure. Become like a kick-ass George St. Pierre, dude. George St. Pierre was karate all the way, man. I love it. I fucking love it. Eziel Mentore, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. I hate how... Oh, you know what? I'm going to read this, but I am going to say this first. I didn't say this at the beginning, and I meant to. I hit 700 subscribers. It finally happened. And it happened exactly the way I knew it was going to happen. I was like at 698 for like 4 days straight. And I had been kind of ticking up. And I was like at just wallowing at that level. And then it's like, boom, 702. So it just went like, boom. And I knew it was going to be that way. I knew it. It's the worst when I'm like right up against a round number. When I get up to 1,000, that's gonna be the worst. The 1,000, like when I'm at 995, that's gonna be the worst. Those like that week, the whole time I'm gonna be. You know what? I'm gonna say it now so that I when I start talking about it later, I'll feel better about it. I'm gonna be fucking just chewing my nails and just like the self angst. That's what it is, guys. Get ready, okay? Get ready. When I'm at like 995, the self-doubt and the angst and the just like, what am I even doing? I don't even care about this. This is all bullshit. I don't even care if I get to 1,000. It's all stupid anyway. Who cares? We all die and life is meaningless. And in 100 years, no one will have cared about me at all. And everything I do is pointless. That's what I'm going to be like for a whole week. And then I'm going to hit 1,000. And then I'll be like, I always knew I was going to hit 1,000. Everything was totally fine. Thanks, guys. So, little snapshot of me in the future for you. Little snapshot of what is coming. on this channel, when I get above, like, between 900 and 1,000, you're going to see the John that's just like, fuck the world and everything in it, and life is so stupid. I hate accomplishing goals. I hate accomplishing goals. It is why I hate accomplishing goals, because it's like right when you're right almost there, and just like, that's when the doubt, the worst doubt. Because I always inherently do believe that everything I do will fail, because that's what life has been for me. Life has been a series of attempts and complete failures. Like, and I'm not saying that for pity reasons or anything. That's just the truth. That's just what life is for me. And I don't see why this channel should be any different, right? And so when I get to a point where I'm like going to cross a goal, a sense of like loathing and doubt and like expectation of failure really comes out, because and even if I do cross 1,000, something's going to happen. Like, something's going to happen. So I keep talking about, like, the McCarthy shit. I'm going to get pulled from YouTube, being shadow banned, all this shit. Right? Because I kind of expect it to happen. Because why shouldn't it? It's always what's happened. It's always what has happened to me. Every single time I start to get something going in this society, the society smashes it down and says no. That's every single time. Every story I have and every job I've ever worked has ended with the society going like, no, you can't do that. So I don't. This I expect to be no different. So if you donate $1, that'll get you onto the Discord, which is important because when I'm pulled from YouTube, the Discord will be the only way to get in touch with me. I'll probably keep doing stuff on Discord. I don't know where I'll like spread that around or anything, but like, you know, such is life. Get ready for it. All right, back. Let's get out of my pit of despair and get back into this other pit of despair. I hate how liberals think all Uyghurs want independence when it couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah, the ETIM is a minority of Uyghurs, and their ideology is not native to Xinjiang. Exactly. No, exactly. Like, and the Uyghur genocide narrative is so easy to dismantle now. Like, it really is. And it's, I hate to say it, but the Uyghur genocide narrative has taken hold. I would not be surprised to find out that the majority of Americans believe that the Uyghur genocide is real. And the same thing happened with the WMD myth, right? The WMD lie. Now, hopefully it can turn back, but hopefully not after something really bad happens, like something really disastrous. Because, like, that lie is really big. Like, it's a really, really big lie, what they're telling about the Uyghurs. And it's really, like, been a cultivated lie. Like, they've really worked on that one. Like, the WMD lie was like, the lie itself was really grand, but they only needed to make, like, a couple of documents, have Colin Powell hold up, like, a little packet, right? So in terms of the orchestration of the lie, it wasn't so grand. But the orchestration of this lie, of the Uyghur genocide lie, is actually really fucking grand. They've got a lot of energy and a lot of resources focused in on the maintenance of this lie, or not the maintenance of the lie, but the maintenance of the distribution of the lie. Right? There's a lot of power going into attempting to convince people that this thing is occurring, right? My favorite is people like send me sob stories, and I'm like, dude, like, you could read sob stories like this, like, in your own country. Like, you're never going to escape heartbreak. Like, that's just called being a fucking human, right? You're always gonna find a story of how, like, and then that guy pushed me over, right? Or you know, and then my child died. Like, that's always going to be the case. Even in the most advanced, hyper, like, egalitarian society, people will still experience heartbreak. And people keep trying to convince me that, oh, this thing's real because Amnesty International has a sob story. I'm like, oh, so Amnesty International, the people who were instrumental in the Iran lie, right? What was her name? Natalia or something, where she literally was just lying straight to the UN about what was happening so that they could invade Iran. Like, We know they do this. Like, we know they tell massive scale lies so that they can invade nations. Like, this is not going to be any different. And yet, the majority of Americans seem to just be on board with it, right? And if you try to point, like, even the most basic stuff out to them, they're just like, la, 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 la. Oh, you're a genocide denier. You're a genocide. What do you think the Holocaust happened too? Oh, my no. Like, yeah, I think that events that happened, and I think that events that didn't happen. Like, I think that's pretty straightforward. Yes, and they recognize the danger of capitalism and increasing returns of capital. Them that has gets. So now they're applying the brakes hard on corporations like Tencent and Alipay. Well, and I actually also do think that some of this, like, Xi Jinping is very clever. He's a very clever man. And the more I read up on him and the more I read his own writings, I do come away thinking, like, this guy's, he's very clever. Like, he's very clever. And part of the crackdown on these corporations, I think, is being done for the egalitarian socialist reasons, right? I think that does play, right? That is certainly part of it. But I also think that China is doing that kind of stuff. Xi Jinping is doing this kind of stuff to show the Americans the lengths that he's willing to go, right? That, like, look at what I'm willing to do to your corporations before you bomb us, right? Like, the Chinese are better at this game than the Americans are. That's something that the Americans, I think, are starting to put together, right? That America has essentially been propelling itself from post-World War II bluster momentum, right? They literally were the only country that didn't get destroyed. That's straight up the reason why America had the place of prominence on the stage. They're completely secure. No one was invading them, right? They had control of the North Atlantic and the North Pacific Ocean, right? No one was coming in here. Nothing was going to happen to these guys. And that's it. It wasn't some, like, grand stroke of strategy. It wasn't like they were genius or anything like that. It literally was, the war didn't come to their shores. Period. That's it. Right? That the closest anybody got was Pearl Harbor. That's it. Right? So, like, a little minor, like, across the cheek. And so they maintained their manufacturing base, they maintained all their infrastructure, they maintained everything, and that momentum propelled them into the post-World War II era. And now they've tricked themselves into believing that they're American exceptionalism and all this crazy shit, right? They've tricked themselves into thinking that they're super smart and they're the best and all this kind of stuff, when all that's happened to them is a twist of fate. Like, if they had been like fucking Poland, right? If they had been like Germany or France or Spain or Kazakhstan or any of these fucking other places, they would have been obliterated. Exceptionalism or no. And now they're coming up against a hard wall, right? And so the game that they've been playing this whole time is just be big and scary. Shock and awe, go in with superior firepower, bomb everybody, right? Just be a big monster. You don't need to be strategic. You don't need to think too hard if your strategy is be a big monster, right? Well, be a big monster is not going to work against China. And guess what? China's better at this game than the Americans are. Like, they fucking are. Because China is a fucking 4,000-year-old civilization. The very fact that in Xi Jinping's reading list, Xi Jinping has a reading list. It's a list that other people maintain. He doesn't maintain those lists, but anytime he mentions something in a speech, it gets put on the reading list. So if he mentions To Kill a Mockingbird, for example, it ends up on the reading list. It's like, you have to read this. And it's of course littered with Chinese writing, right? Because he's Chinese, makes sense. But there's a lot of European writing in there too, right? There's a lot of different sources that he's pulling from all over the place, all over the globe, when he does his speeches, when he does this kind of stuff. So he's reading everything, right? You think Joe Biden is fucking reading anything coming out of China? You think Donald Trump is reading anything coming out of China? Right? So, like, the Chinese are better at this game than the Americans. I wouldn't be too surprised to find out that the Chinese, like, They anticipate the Americans are going to come in and bomb a bunch of shit. They know exactly what they're going to do. Just like when America picked up Meng, right? America had Canada pick up Meng. The same fucking, I think it was literally the same day, the Chinese turned around and picked up 2 of their spies, right? So like the Chinese know what they're going to do already. That's the thing that these Americans, they have never fought against anybody who, like, literally the strategy for everyone they've ever fought has been, the Americans have invaded us, well, capitulate and get on with your lives. There they are. What are you going to do about it? That's literally been the strategy of everything. Like, maybe you can form your little rebellion group and, like, have a resistance movement. They have never fought against somebody, against any organization, any nation, or any country, that when the Americans come and punch, they're going to punch back. Right? And because China is older, wiser, more experienced, right? And their current leadership has a depth of knowledge that the Americans' leadership do not have. Straight up. The Chinese are going to make these guys look like chumps. Because they are. The Americans are just losers and chumps with, like, fucking big nukes. Like, that's their big thing. They're just fucking losers. And the Chinese are going to make them look like that. Because it's not hard to do, because they are. Like, the very fact that the Americans are going to go over there and fucking try to cause shit in the first place is something a fucking loser would do. Like, you should be trading with these guys. Like, why would anyone think anything other than this? Why would anyone think anything other than, wow, China's really grown and become like a real hub and has like really established themselves in the world and everybody respects them and everything's really great. Wow, we should be buddies. I can't imagine, like, what kind of a person thinks anything other than that. There is a civilization and a culture that went through some really hard times, century of humiliation, fucking real, right? Pulled themselves out of poverty, right? And why not grab on? You know how capitalists always try to take credit for this? Oh, poverty is reduced because of capitalism, right? Certainly not in spite of capitalism, but because of it. Why not just grab a hold of that? Just grab a hold of that and say, you know what, China? Yeah, you pulled yourself up from your bootstraps and you pulled yourself out of poverty, and we helped you. Your buddies here in America with our capitalist endeavors. We joined hands together, and in unity and togetherness and humanity, we all lifted everybody up out of poverty. Like, why wouldn't the Americans do this? That would be the wisest thing to do, right? Why not just be like, oh, great, we're buddies. Keep capitalism relevant in the conversation. Keep it going, right? Do all this kind of stuff. Nah, we're going to go bomb them. Ooh. The CCP is making policy that reflects the reality of late-stage capitalism. Yeah. I really don't like that we're calling this late-stage capitalism anymore. Like, this isn't capitalism anymore. It's just not. It isn't. What is capitalist about this? There's nothing capitalist going on anymore. Like, we're not in late-stage capitalism. This is feudalism. This is neo-feudalism, what we're experiencing now. It's already there. Once they get rid of the democratic structure completely, it will be obvious. But we're already there. Like, everybody works for the wealthy. You can't not, right? The wealthy own the companies who own the shares. That's what it is. Bill Gates owns 10% of everything. Elon Musk owns 10% of everything, right? The Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Morgans own 10% of everything, right? Like, you don't have to own a big institution. You just need to own 10% of everything, like David Thompson does here in Canada, right? Those are your owners. Those are the people who own this place. It is feudalism. And no, you can't not work for them because they own everything. So even if you change your costume or change the activity you're doing, you're still working for them. It's already a neo-feudal structure, right? And you don't get to participate in what happens up here, right? You don't get to participate in any of that. And just wait until the old monarchical ways of establishing alliances returns, right? When the Musks and the Gates start to intermarry, when Bezos and a Rothschild, when they start to all intermarry with one another, which is going to happen, right? Then it's going to be like, hey guys, it's feudalism. Hey, are you noticing how it's fucking feudalism? Are you noticing how all the wealthy families are intermarrying and intermingling? Are you noticing how it works? Like feudalism works? Like, that's where we are, and that's where we're heading. Like, I just don't see any other trajectory. Like, outside of, like, a mass uprising and a revolution and, like, that whole trajectory, right, that the fucking Chinese did, right? Outside of that trajectory, it's straight up. Just like the Musks and the Gates are going to marry one another, and the Rothschilds will have a kid, and they'll fucking marry and all that kind of stuff, right? And it'll just be fucking feudalism. Like, tell me I'm fucking wrong. Like, it doesn't matter what company you work for. They're all owned by the same guys. Like, what's capitalist about this? Well, I'm wishing and praying for good things for you, dude. I wish and pray for the same thing for you, Tash. That's a really nice thing to say. That's a really nice thing to say, you know? It's, I just feel like I laid out something there, and blech. Better than Dunning-Kruger your way through life could be eating horse paste right now. Oh yeah, I could be eating horse paste right now. That's true. That's true. Oh, speaking of that, I have all these fucking links that I've been completely ignoring because I've just been chatting away. Oh, come on. Come on. There it is. Network of right-wing healthcare providers is making millions off hydrochloroquine and ivermectin, hacked data reveals. The data also reveals that 72,000 people paid at least $6.7 million for COVID-19 consultations promoted by America's frontline doctors and vaccine conspiracist Simone Gold. So, hardly fucking shocking whatsoever, right? A network of healthcare providers, grifters, pocketed millions of dollars selling hydrochloroquine, ivermectin, and online consultations, according to hacked data provided to The Intercept. The data shows that vast sums of money are being extracted from people concerned about or suffering from COVID-19, but resistant to vaccinations or other recommendations to public health authorities. So the very people who are recommending ivermectin and hydrochloroquine are the people who are invested in it and making money doing it. So big fucking shock, right? Here's the proof. Like, here's the fucking proof. Misinformation can be really powerful to swindle people into buying products. Dr. Colina Colpe, who researches vaccine misinformation in digital communities at the University of Washington Center for an Informed Public, told The Intercept. Americans' frontline doctors are able to scale this up massively. Right? America's frontline doctors being an organization, not literal frontline doctors. The hacked data includes information on 281,000 patients created by the Cadence Health database between July 16th and September 12th, 2021. 90% who were referred from America's frontline doctors. In just those 2 months, patients paid an estimated $6.7 million from consultations. Right? It's a grift. The whole ivermectin, hydrochloroquine kind of thing, it's just a grift. Right? There's lots of money to be made grifting these people. Big, long Intercept article. Really, really goes into it. Here's Joe Rogan, right? AFLDS reaches its audience through a variety of social media platforms. Gold, the group's founder, has more than 340,000 Twitter followers, and she regularly posts anti-vaccine content, such as this video of podcaster Joe Rogan falsely claiming that ivermectin and other drugs have been shown to be ineffective that have been ineffective at treating COVID-19 has cured him of the virus, right? So Mr. Rogan is in it, right? He's in on it. Like, the decline of Joe Rogan has been actually kind of heartbreaking to watch. I gotta be honest. It's been really tough. I haven't done like a big, deep dive onto it, because to do so would be a massive project. It would be a massive project to really illustrate that what has happened to Joe Rogan has been a decline. Like, and specifically a decline of empathy, a decline of compassion, and a linking to larger, powerful organizations in order to pursue, maximum profits. It's been really, really heartbreaking to watch, and I that's why I got to tune out of Joe Rogan. Like, it's just like he's lost his ability to have compassion and empathy because he's slavishly wealthy now. He did $100 million deal with Spotify, and that was kind of the beginning of the end for him. Like, I was talking about John's 99% progress bar angst where subscribers are concerned, but thank you, brethren. I like that it instead of brethren, it's become brethren. That's very funny, dude. Let's make this place as culty as possible, eh? What do you think? Let's go the Dadaist perspective, right? And let's do everything as culty as possible, but everything will be loaves of bread. Huh? So I should get a loaf of bread, hollow it out, and wear it as a hat. Right? Have like a loaf of bread hat. Hello, fellow brethren. And like do everything straight. Totally like cult. Normal. Well, normal as a cult can be. But just all the stuff you expect a cult to be. Except everything is just bread. This reminds me of a great story. Do you know where the Pope hat comes from? Right? So the Pope's got this ridiculous, stupid hat. We all know it. I don't even need to search it up. It's this dumbass hat, right? So there was a period of time in in Catholicism, where there was a conflict between who was actually the Pope. You had like a French Pope, you had an Italian Pope, and I believe you had an Austrian Pope. So you had three popes vying for power. And I could be corrected on this. This is totally fine. It doesn't matter for the story. And so, and at the time, the official garb of the Pope was just the little cap, right? Just the little cap they all wear, right? There was no big hat, just a little cap. And so one day, one of the popes shows up to deliver a speech or whatever, and his hat's just a little bit taller. Just a little. Like nothing extravagant, just like a little noticeably, but just boop, just enough. And so the next pope, like the Austrian Pope, shows up, and he's like, well, my hat's a little bit bigger. And then the Italian Pope comes up, well, my hat's a little bit bigger. And then the French guy, a little bit bigger. Until finally they're like fucking ending up with this enormous, ridiculous, like the guy's coming in with this fucking absurd, stupid looking bullshit hat that everyone's supposed to take seriously. And then finally the whole thing resolves itself. A pope is chosen, right? But now everybody's like, yeah, you gotta wear the hat. So they're stuck with this fucking stupid-ass, dumbass hat that, like, looks ridiculous. Like, how can you possibly... I am a very serious person. Take my opinions of spirituality seriously. Like, no. What two countries have worse media coverage than China and the DPRK? Probably America, right? Probably America itself, actually. Iran? Yeah, Lebanon. Oh, Israel? Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Haha, being pressured to get vaccine is genocide now? Yeah, it's hilarious. Russia holds its first royal wedding since 1917 Bolshevik Revolution toppled. Yes, I saw that. A Russian, one of the old Russian Tsarists of the Tsarist bloodline, marries an Italian princess, right? So that shit's still happening, guys. Like, feudalism's right there. Like, the fucking Gates family can get involved in it. You think Donald Trump is reading anything? No. Donald Trump doesn't read. I'd be surprised if he even read the book that he had somebody write, The Art of the Deal, right? Like roaches multiplying under the refrigerators, gotta get them all. Sorry to redirect here, but Tencent and Alipay are almost exclusively Chinese. It's an internal problem being just okay. That's a fine correction, Victini. I was just speculating in any case. Sure, it's an example, and that's good fact checking, bud. I like that. Okay, I assumed that it was more American interference based on how the Americans are reacting to it. They're definitely getting all kind of butthurt about it, but it doesn't even really affect them directly. But it's just the idea that, like, oh no, there's a country with rules and they're following it. How authoritarian, right? That's my favorite talking point now. Anytime anybody comes at me with like, oh, that country's so authoritarian, I literally look at them and I just go like, you mean they have rules and they follow it? Right? We're so used to living in this lawless, like, rules only exist for a very specific group of people, and that's, us. They don't apply to wealthy people. Like, there are no laws if you're wealthy. Like, literally, Caitlyn Jenner ran a guy over with a car. Like, if you're rich enough, you don't fucking go to jail. Like, the O'Learys. The fucking O'Learys killed a guy with a boat. Nothing. Right? Like, there aren't, like, Bill fucking Cosby roofied and raped 50 women. Like, there are no rules. And what's dangerous about what's happening is I found this guy. This is just like a TikTok, just a guy ranting. But he hits on something that I think is fundamentally true and dangerous. Right? Have a listen. No?
The most important thing that I've learned is I graduated college 2.5 years ago. And the most important thing that I've learned is that the society that we live in does not value hard work nearly as much as it values delusional confidence. If you're confident enough, you can do whatever you want. If you have $50 and an internet connection, you can create business cards for whatever profession that you want to be in. I've been the CEO of Google for about 2 weeks now, and I leave my business cards everywhere. Hotels, bars, restaurants, Office Depot, I don't care. I get calls from people and they say, hey, you can't do this. This is fraud. It's illegal. And I say, well, take it up with the complaints department. Their number is on the card. And when they call the complaints department number, it redirects to the worst reviewed Applebee's in my tri-state area. Can you imagine being angry at a 25-year-old who's pretending to be the CEO of a major tech company, and when you call the complaints department number, somebody answers and they say, hi, welcome to Applebee's. This is Stacy. Can I please put you on hold? It infuriates them. And it's funny. Who cares about anything? Nothing is real. Like, lie, cheat, steal, be a con man. That's what everybody at the top has already done. What's stopping you? Who gives a shit?
So this sentiment, right, is dangerous, not on an individual level, not that I'm saying like, oh, this young man needs to just straighten up and do all that kind of blah, 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 but like that spirit that he is articulating, this spirit of, well, just fuck it, might as well lie, cheat, and steal, be a con man, right, might as well, because the whole society is coming down anyway, that's going to spread. That's going to become somewhat normalized, right? People are going to anticipate and expect, right? There's always going to be a barrier of mistrust between people because the society itself is in decline and has degraded. That all of the institutions are failing. All of the institutions are refusing to respond rationally to the needs of the populace. And it's only a matter of time until the populace just begins to abandon them back. Like, why pay for groceries? Just walk out the door. Why not just take this bike? Like, why? Why not do that? And once that begins to happen on larger and larger scales, wait until young men like this start to group up, right? Wait until young men like this, under that ethos that he just articulated right there, start to group up and do things more meaningful than just little prank business cards, right? Think about that kind of trolling. Think about the trolling that guy is articulating and talking about, but organized and motivated, right? Like, you're gonna end up with a lot of fucking crazy shit happening in America, dude. Like, a lot of fucking crazy shit is gonna happen. Because young men like this are just gonna be like, well, fuck it. Right? Might as well try. I got nothing else going on. What are they gonna do? Right? What are they gonna do? Arrest me? Well, at least then I've got room and board. That's when shit gets dangerous for societies. When people start to say, well, prison's not really a punishment. Right? You ever meet somebody who's already done that? I have. I've met guys who are like, yeah, I go do a minor offense so that I can get free room and board in the prison over the winter. They release me in about spring, right? Because I know the criminal code, right? It's 6 months of time for this offense, right? I pop out, right? Live my life through the spring and the summer, and then I do a minor offense and get thrown back in prison. Free room and board. Why shouldn't I do it? And I looked at him and I was just like, yeah, okay. Like, that's what you're doing. Right? So wait until it's like a group of 20-year-olds who understand that their society has abandoned them, who understand that they have no prospects. Like, there's nothing. There's nothing in America anymore. Well, what do you think they're going to start doing? I convene the council. We should vote on the bread hat seconders. That's hilarious. People have tried to get me into New Age stuff, Doreen Virtue style. And you know what's so funny, dude? I actually legitimately do think that if I were to move forward on this, if I were to move forward with like bread hat and like actually make things a lot more culty and weird, I actually think it would only help my growth. I really think people would go for it. I'll write the bread constitution after I finish my constitutional law course. And we need to write it on bread, right? We need to have like a big loaf or a big like slice of bread that upon which everything is written, right? And it'll be like the bread tablet. And if we want to add amendments, we'll have like a second bread tablet, right? Everything's got to be bread. Like, everything's got to be bread. I'll wear like the bread hat and I'll have like an apron, like a cook's apron, right? My official title will be the baker. Huh? What do you think? Right? That will have like an arch baker and like the just the baker. There is a little part of me that is just like, I should fucking do this. This is a good idea. Yes, amendments, of course, will be on a second slice, of course. Of course. And what other bread-related shit can we do? Oh, bread daddy. Alex, why you gotta make it like that? Huh? Bread daddy. This is not a sex kink thing, dude. This is a serious, completely legitimate cult idea. We are forming a fake cult. I mean, and I hope that it would stay that way. I like my cults to be fake. Thank you very much. I need this in my life. Major hydraulic, you baller. It would be ironic with the gluten allergy thing. I hadn't even thought of that. That's so funny, dude. I'm like wearing this bread hat. My skin is like boiling. Oh. Paradox of a doughless bread society. Yeah, that's right. That's right. The what would the god be that we would worship? Because there has to be some weird culty god, right? Like it can't just be like a loaf of bread, can it? Can it? Like, it's got to be some. Have a good one, Alex. Thanks for popping in, bud. There's got to be some god. There's got to be some creature that we're all like. I'm blanking. The yeast. All praise the yeast. That which with we plant to then grow and harvest upon our shelves, that we then break down into the flour to create the mighty bread. But the bread cannot be activated without the yeast. The yeast. Activate us, O great and powerful yeast. Without your guidance, we will be forever inert. We cannot change our water and our flour into bread. O mighty yeast. Capitalism already worships dough. Rise! 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 This is like a fucking Rick and Morty sketch right here, dude. Like, everybody's wearing loaves of bread, right? Like, everything is made out of, like, I've got, like, shoulder caps that are, like, biscuits, right? Shoulder cap biscuits. The whole thing. I've got, like, slices of bread as, like, a uniform. You know what I'm talking about? Like, a slice of bread all over the place, right? This is quality stuff here, guys. This is quality stuff. I do love Rise! Rise! That's so funny. And I would have like I'd have to have like a scepter. The scepter would be a baguette, right? The scepter would be a baguette, and on top of it would be another loaf of bread. Yes. Yes. Grain has become a measure of life. Bakers suspected of hoarding bread face persecution. That's right. That's right. We must share the bread. Right? The dough must be for all. Garden Mice, how you doing, man? You've come in at like the weirdest moment. Loaf, look at what you've done, dude. Look at what you've done. You made like a clever name with this loaf of Kropotkin. And then it became the bread meme. And now we are legitimately talking about a bread cult. Look at what you've done. I came in at the best time, you mean? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. While we are planning and structuring a bread cult. So guys, if you want to be part of the bread cult, right, be sure to like, share, subscribe, donate $1, get into the Discord, so we can plan the future cult meetings. The bread cult. I swear to God, guys, if this becomes canon, if there's like my little maple leaf with the communist symbol and it's like on a loaf of bread, like let's say a year's time, the channel's still going and things are going well, right? And what people know me for is a fucking loaf of bread with the maple leaf and the hammer and sickle on it. I'm gonna be mad about it. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be mad about it. Like, it'll be funny. It'll be funny, and I will definitely keep moving forward, and I will definitely keep rolling with it. But I will be mad about it. The rise thing. The rise is what tips me over to being like, this is really good. Like, this is really, really good. Like, the whole, like, oh, great and powerful yeast, come inside of us and activate us so that we may rise. Rise! Yes. Isn't bread an anarcho-communist meme? Probably. Like, what's the name of it? It's, bread features in a lot of writing. It's, and I'm totally blanking on a bunch. It has been decided. Branding is branding, man. Gotta get them eyes on the channel. It's realistic. Yeah. This is stupid enough to work. Yes, that's what it is. The conquest of bread. The conquest of bread, that's right. Let it be written. Let it be done. Oh man, this is so stupid that I think it actually would work. Like, that's the thing. I'm quite serious. Like I said it earlier, and I actually do mean it. If I did move forward and do like a bread hat with the cult and everything, and the whole chat was, there's a bread cult on Facebook already. Fuck them. Fuck them. Bread cult Facebook. Bread cult. How many? First of all, they're a cooking school, so no one cares. I have more followers than they do. Peace among world, bitches. Yeah, peace, land, and bread. Bolshevik party. Yeah, that's another good one. Stupid like a fox. That's right. No, I got more subscribers than these guys. Let's take a sharp left turn into kooky crazy territory. Let's just do it. No. Guys, I'm not going to show up with a bread hat. Like, I'm going to straight. This has been fun and all. But I do want you guys to know, I am not going to show up with a bread hat. Just not going to happen. Just going to let you down nice and easy on this one. In case any of you were, like, actually being like, oh, finally, a bread cult. I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. No, I'm sorry to say, no bread cult for you guys. Not going to happen. I do rather like it as an inside joke, though. That's pretty fun. There's another bread cult? There's another bread cult? How many bread cults do we need? The bread hat is already in the mail to your place. I would be extremely impressed, Love. I gotta tell you. Okay, hold on. There's another bread cult. The cult of bread. This is just a personal blog. There's only 9 people following this. That's not a cult. That's not a cult. Let's see, here's the cooking school again, so we know. We're better than them. Here we go. Bread cult religious organization. Now we're getting serious. And you can tell that we're serious because of the anime girl, or boy, right? Who is in the banner. Absolutely. 20 people follow this. Get fucked. Get wrecked, other bread cult. We are the one true bread cult. I'm feeling oddly satisfied about this. Like, there's something oddly satisfactory about knowing that if I wanted to change this into a bread-based cult, I would actually be in the lead. Like, I could legitimately say that I have the largest follower base amongst bread cultists. I'm a bread cult leader. Thank you. Thank you. And then people would be like, oh, do you really like bread? And I'd be like, no, I have gluten intolerance. I know exactly what's gonna happen, guys. I am eventually gonna wear a fucking bread hat. Like, I think it's written in the stars now, isn't it? Like, I feel like there is a timeline. I'll put it this way. There is a timeline where I do end up wearing a bread hat. That timeline exists, and it's pretty close to this timeline. Like, I can see, like, they're right beside each other. It'd be real easy to dip into that timeline. I think I would have a hard time being pulled in the direction of, like, actually going for it. That would be the big sell, or that would be the big jump. But I could be convinced to wear the hat. I think the hat is pretty... I like wearing hats. Hats are fun. I like fashion. I'm a fashionista myself. Oh my god. Look at what has happened. Okay. Teachable moment. Okay? Because we're getting to the end of it. It's almost time to say farewell. Here's the teachable moment. Look at how a little tiny thing evolved through solidarity and us just fucking around, but like us getting together and building on this little tiny thing, this little unexpected thing that begins just because there's a fellow in the chat by the name of Loaf of Kropotkin, and it evolves and it changes and people start to do stuff and people start to add in all this kind of stuff. And now we are literally talking about a bread cult. Like, and even though, again, gonna break it to you guys, probably not gonna manifest. I'd be very surprised. I have my little like bread hammer. And I'm like, order. Like, that's not gonna happen. But just the fact that we had such like a wonderful conversation about it, just like it was so nice to like live in that world where there is such a thing as a bread cult, and there are other bread cults, and all of this. Yes, the bread king, the bread pope. Thank you very much, sir. We need to come up with a really good name, something that's like really, really, really embedded in like bread, and like a type of bread, right? And attach it to like the Pope or a bishop or something like the papacy or something. And it's just got to be like a perfect amalgamation of those. And I don't accept bread Pope. That's not good enough. I need like a very specific name or type of bread linking to a very, like a cardinal or something. You know what I mean? And those two things need to come together. That's what we need, for sure. For sure. That's the challenge. I leave it on you for the weekend, all of you. Think it through. Let's see. That's homework for the weekend. But like, really, actually, like, do think sacramental bread. Yeah, that's cute. Really do think though, like this started as almost as a single individual just choosing a username and it from almost nothing. And it just kind of grew into this lovely conversation we've had. If this is as far as it goes, how lovely. How lovely. And the same thing can happen in our political system and in our society. It can. And it does. That even if you are out there feeling small, feeling insignificant, feeling not part of something, feeling as though what you're doing doesn't matter, well, we just all went through an experience together that disproved that thesis completely. That great things always start small. And that to me is a powerful lesson for all of us to take away from this specific moment. As Bumbleguppy is still saying, croissant comment, bread loafers, baguette buddies. And so, with a hey nani nani and a ho ho ho, always remember, guys, here's the cult moment. Here's the cult moment. You are divine beings. Each and every one of you. You are a divine being walking around in divine energy. It could be all made of bread. Who's to say? These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to convince you that something else is going on. And they're only doing it so that we'll do all the work while they do fucking nothing. And so, I beseech thee and the great yeast god to rise. Good luck. We're going to need it.